Chapter 788. Good. Well said. In Taiji Palace, Li Zexuan's passionate words caused the eyes of all the generals to light up. Li Er, who was sitting at the head of the table, didn't show any change on his face, but if one was close enough, one would be able to hear that his breathing had quickened. Cheng Yaojin had never liked to hide his emotions. Old Cheng shouted, "Okay." Then, the old man still felt uncomfortable. He laughed loudly and walked over. He patted Li Zexuan's shoulder hard and said, "Li Zexuan, I'm not going anywhere. Brat, you've said exactly what we old generals are thinking. The peace of our great Tang isn't begged for, but fought for. If the Japanese aren't convinced, then we'll beat them until they are. If the other small countries aren't convinced, then we'll continue to King beat them. What's there to be afraid of? In the imperial court, your mouth is full of filth." How rude. Many civil officials frowned in the face of old Cheng's foul language, but no one reprimanded him. They all knew what kind of character this devil incarnate had. However, there were also those who weren't afraid of death, and that was Cui Shanfu. This old man had completely forgotten the pain after his wounds healed. He couldn't help but reprimand him. Rude? I, old Cheng, am clearly courageous. Unlike some people who, after 2 years of peace, shrink back and be afraid of this and that. They're really a disgrace to our great Tang. Cheng Yaojin immediately snorted disdainfully at Cui Shanfu. Li Zexuan, on the other hand, secretly applauded. Cheng Yaojin's words were precisely the reason why he had changed his usual style and forcefully stood out today. Now that the world had settled down, some people couldn't wait to put away their weapons and live a peaceful and comfortable life. How could that be? The current Great Tang was still quite a distance away from the prosperous dynasty in Li Zexuan's mind that could dominate the world. Who's shrinking back? This old man is just speaking the truth. Li Zexuan is just a brat who only knows how to talk big. When the time comes for the world to attack the Great Tang, what will we use to fight against the other countries? At that time, there would be wars every year, and the treasury would be empty. The common people would be plunged into misery and suffering. The slightest carelessness could lead to the downfall of the country. How can such an important matter of the country be decided by a little boy in his teens? When Cui Shanfu saw that Cheng Yaojin was just talking and not doing anything, he couldn't help but become bolder. The more he talked, the more excited he became. In the end, he was moved by his feelings for the country and the people. "Chief Cui, your words are too much." Before Cheng Yaojin could say anything, Li Shaogong spoke up. To be honest, Cheng Yaojin, Yuqigong Li Zexuan, and the others stood up for him and supported him, which was within his expectations. However, Li Zexuan also stood up for him, which surprised him a little. This was because in his impression, Li Zexuan had always been unwilling to participate in these court battles. Otherwise, this child would not be a third-rank official now. However, in reality, his daily authority was limited to the Yanhuang College's Yamacho. Regardless of where a hero comes from, Li Zhanshu is full of abilities. So what if he's young? A curved plow, a paper machine, a compass, a celestial lamp, and a glass mirror. These are all things that benefit the country and the people. Even if it was a 30 or 40-year-old scholar, would he be able to do better than Li Zhanshu? This time, if the fleet didn't have the help of Li Zhanshu's compass and sea chart, the casualties of the army and the people going south would definitely be more than 20 to 30%. How can such a young hero not even have the right to speak in a cord in your mouth? Even if Li Zexuan didn't come out to help today, Li Shaogong would still speak up for him. This was because if it wasn't for Li Zexuan's help, this southern trade trip definitely wouldn't have gone so smoothly. Shaogong well said. So what if he's young? Cui Shanfu, when you were Xiao Xin's age, who knows what you were doing? You still have the nerve to talk about Xiao Xin's age? Cheng Yaojin looked at Cui Shanfu and said with contempt, You. Cui Shanfu's face turned red. He pointed at Cheng Yaojin and trembled for a long time, but he couldn't say anything. Li Zexuan knew that at this time, he also had to go on stage. Otherwise, how could he always let others stand in front of him? Thus, he stepped forward and clasped his hands at Cui Shanfu. Minister Chui just said that this kid was just talking big. When the time comes to attack the Tang Empire, I can't do anything. Heh, how ridiculous. This kid here swears to the heavens that when the time comes, this kid is not only willing to use all of his family's wealth as military supplies, but this kid's 7 feet tall body is also willing to jump on the battlefield, lay down his head, and shed his blood. The yellow sand wears golden armor after 100 battles, and Lulan won't return until it's broken. This kid dares to say, dares to do, and dares to take responsibility for his actions. As for the empty national treasury and the suffering of the people, it's not like there's no solution. Not to mention that this southern trade trip brought a huge amount of income to the imperial court that was comparable to the annual tax revenue of the national treasury. There's also Yanhuang College. There are hundreds of engineering students there, and what I'm teaching them is all knowledge that can make the country prosperous and the people strong. Once they complete their studies and leave the mountain, there will be hundreds of Li Zishuan who are good at creating wealth, and the number will only increase in the future. The lives of the people will also get better and better. In comparison, this kid can't stand some people who are afraid before the battle. Things haven't even happened yet, but they're already afraid of this and that, cowering in fear. You must know that nothing in this world is difficult for those who set their mind to it. As long as you set your mind to it, there's nothing in this world that can't be done. The Tang Empire was founded on martial arts. If there's a day when all the important officials in the court are afraid to fight, then the country won't be far from being destroyed. If you want to be everlasting, then you must always maintain the will to forge ahead and do things that ordinary people think are impossible. You shouldn't be afraid of everything like you are now, until you achieve nothing in the end. Li Zishuan's words could be said to be frequent golden sentences, such as gold wears golden armor in 100 battles, and Lulan will not be returned until it is broken. From Wang Chongling's 7 military lessons, 4th. Nothing in this world is difficult for those who set their mind to it. Song Chun Yuanjing's Lin Guangji, Volume 9. These sentences had never appeared before, and every one of them sounded so classic. Perhaps Li Zishuan himself didn't pay attention to this, and he just said it casually. However, Zhang Sun Wuji, Fang Xianling, and the other civil officials couldn't help but look at Li Zishuan in a new light. They secretly thought that this kid had never shown his talent in writing before, but today, he suddenly said so many good sentences. Could it be that he improvised? However, there was a problem. For someone like Li Zishuan, who kept saying words like destroy the country, he couldn't be said to be a coward. If it was a narrow-minded emperor, he might have been killed because of this. Good. It's rare for Li Zhanshu to have such insight at such a young age. Although this old man doesn't dare to agree with all of your previous views, this old man definitely agrees with the latter part of your words. To everyone's surprise, the old troll actually supported Li Zishuan. Chapter 789. Yellow sand wears golden armor after 100 battles. Lulan won't return until it is broken. Wei Zheng suddenly spoke up for Li Zishuan in the imperial court, which was indeed unexpected. However, Li Er, who was sitting at the head of the table, did not pay attention to this. He muttered Li Zishuan's poem twice, and if one looked closely, they would find that his eyes were actually shining. After a while, just as the officials in the imperial court were still discussing and whispering to each other, Li Er finally spoke. There's no need to discuss this matter anymore. The Battle of Fanio capital was started by the nation. First, they attacked the Tang Empire's merchant ships. Then they assassinated the Tang Emperor. They should be punished. Xiao Gong's actions were all for the sake of the Tang Empire's people. Even if he had overstepped the bounds, a general is outside and does not obey military orders. We cannot punish a meritorious official because of this. The journey to the south was full of dangers. Xiao Gong alone shouldered the heavy responsibility and brought back a large amount of food, spices, and money for the imperial court at a very low cost. He really deserves great credit for his hard work. I have decided to reward Xiao Gong with 200 households, 10 pairs of elephant tusks, 50 tiger skins, 100 rolls of silk, 5,000 taels of silver, and 2 million taels of money. After such a long discussion, Li Er finally made the final decision. The noisy crowd in the imperial court suddenly quieted down. "Thank you, Your Majesty." Li Xiaogong hurriedly bowed to express his thanks. Cheng Yaojin and the others said happily, "Your Majesty is wise." Cui Shanfu was so angry that he frowned, but at this time, he did not dare to say anything. He did not want to anger Li Er again. He heard Li Er continue. "The compensation for the soldiers who died in the battle will be increased by 1 level. The Ministry of Civil Affairs will send a special person to compensate the civilian who died in the battle. Among them, the civilian who survived, Meng Yuliang, loudly warned at the critical moment and prevented the merchant ship from falling into the hands of the bandits. Moreover, this person is extremely loyal and brave. At the moment of life and death, he forcefully changed the direction of the burning ship and saved the main fleet. I have decided to confer him the title of Grade 8 Xuanjia Commandant. He will be rewarded 100,000 taels of silver and 100 rolls of silk. Feng Jihua, a merchant on the same ship, is a man who values friendship and righteousness. In the face of danger, he is not flustered. The title of Righteous Merchant shall be bestowed upon him." When Li Zishuan heard this, he was secretly happy for Meng Wenhao's father. This man, who was like a pillar of the family, had finally used his own life to support his family. It was really not easy. Although the rank of an 8th grade official was small, it was still an official position. In the future, their family would not be easily bullied by others. This was just a reward for 2 nameless soldiers, and the rewards were insignificant. Naturally, the ministers in the court would not object. Some of them even felt that Li Er should not have brought this kind of small matter to the court. It seemed like he was making a mountain out of a molehill. Lantian County's Li Zishuan, who created the compass, presented the sea map, and helped the fleet return safely. Although he didn't personally participate in the voyage, his contributions in the rear cannot be erased. Moreover, it was you who suggested that the fleet go south to trade. Now that the fleet has brought back such a large amount of goods and money for my great Tang, your contributions cannot go unnoticed. In addition, you invented the paper machine, leveled the price of paper, presided over the compilation of the Great Tang Dictionary, and enlightened tens of thousands of people. Your contributions to the present generation will benefit the future generations. We have decided to reward you with these contributions. You will be conferred the title of Marquis of Yong, and with a fief of Lantian and 600 households. Regarding Li Zishuan's official position, Li Er had been deliberately suppressing it. Previously, Li Zishuan had made many contributions, but Li Er did not reward Li Zishuan. He felt that Li Zishuan was still too young, and if he were to reward him too much, it would be overpraising him. But later on, Li Er felt that Li Zishuan's abilities and views were becoming less and less like those of a teenage brat. Thus, Li Er decided to stop suppressing it and directly promote Li Zishuan from county's marquis to Li Zishuan. Of course, this one step was truly one step. At least within the next 10 years, Li Zishuan's noble rank would not be able to rise any further. Otherwise, he would quickly reach a point where he could not rise any further. Li Er wanted to leave this talent to Li Changxian. This subject thanks Your Majesty for the great favor. When the ministers heard Li Er's reward, they were all stunned. Li Zishuan took advantage of the moment when others were stunned to go forward and thank him. Logically speaking, he did not care if his marquis title could be promoted in the next few years. His original dream was to become a marquis in the Great Tang. Now that his dream had come true, he naturally had to cherish this opportunity. As for the title of Duke above Marquis, he did not even think about it. To him, one Marquis was enough. Your Majesty, this. Almost at the same time, Wei Jing also opened his mouth. It seemed that he wanted to object, but seeing Li Zishuan accept the reward so quickly, he could only swallow the words that were on the tip of his tongue. His expression was very ugly. Li Er indifferently glanced at Wei Jing, but did not ask for details. He waved his hand and said, "The matter of the reward ends here. Officials, if there is anything, please submit a memorial. If there is nothing, The court is dismissed. The officials looked at each other. After the establishment of the Great Tang, marquis titles were extremely rare. But now, Li Er had so casually rewarded a founding marquis. No matter how they looked at it, this was very imprudent. But once the domineering Li Er made up his mind, there was no room for discussion. They could only secretly glare at each other. Zhang Sun Wuji pursed his lips, seemingly itching to make a move. But after thinking for a long time, he did not say anything. On the other hand, Cheng Yaojin was beaming with joy, as if he was the one being rewarded by Li Er. After waiting for a while, seeing that no one objected, Li Er was just about to announce that the court was dismissed when he saw a person walk in. Who else could it be but Xiao Yu? Beloved official Xiao, why have you returned? Could it be that the matter at the docks was resolved so quickly? Li Er asked curiously when he saw Xiao Yu hurrying over. How could 880,000 dan of grain be transported in such a short time? Xiao Yu bitterly smiled and cupped his hands. Your Majesty, now that the autumn harvest has just passed, Chang'an's granary can only hold a few 100,000 dan of grain at most. So, this old official has returned to ask Your Majesty if we should transport the excess grain to Luoyang along the canal. Only then did Li Er come to a realization. Actually, he could not be blamed for not thinking things through. He did not expect Li Shaogan to bring back so much grain. Otherwise, he would not have asked Xiao Yu to make an extra trip. Let's do as beloved official Xiao says. Use the fleet to transport the excess grain to Luoyang's Hanjia granary. If there was a locust plague next year, he could transfer grain from Chang and Luoyang at the same time. That was what Li Er thought. This official obeys Your Majesty. Xiao Yu replied and cupped his hands before leaving. Li Er looked at the officials in the hall and said loudly, Since there is nothing else, the court is dismissed. Just like that, the morning court finally came to an end after many twists and turns. Li Zixuan returned with a full load. Chapter 790. Not bad, not bad. You're already a marquis at such a young age. You're even more promising than I was back then. After the morning court session, Cheng Yaojin patted Li Zixuan's shoulder and laughed heartily. Uncle Cheng, you must be joking. Compared to you, I'm still far behind. I was born in an era of peace. If I was born in your era, I definitely wouldn't have been as successful as you. Li Zixuan's half-true and half-false words made Cheng Yaojin burst with joy. That's true. Back then, the world was in turmoil. The 18 rebellious princes all had their own armies. The people had no way to make a living. I fought left and right, and finally, I was able to become His Majesty's subordinate and conquer the world together. Cheng Yaojin stroked his beard as he spoke, looking as if he was reminiscing. What a scene of a hero in his twilight years, reminiscing about the past. Li Zixuan almost vomited blood. He thought to himself, Old Cheng is really good at pretending. There's no end to it. I'd better slip away quickly and go home to hug my wife. Uncle Cheng, your generation really didn't have it easy. I still have something to do at home. I'll take my leave first. I'll treat you to a drink some other day. After waiting for so long, he finally got a marquis. He was eager to go home and share this good news with his wife and parents. He didn't want to talk nonsense with old Cheng here. Cheng Yaojin smacked his lips and said, Then you go first. Xiao Xian, you've been made a marquis. You should go back and celebrate. Of course, this old man will definitely go and eat your celebratory wine. Oh, right. Second brother Qin still doesn't know that you become a marquis, right? Since it's my day off tomorrow, I'll go to the academy in the afternoon and tell him the good news. I'll also give those kids another round of special training. At the mention of special training, the old demon's eyes immediately lit up, and a cruel smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Li Zixuan couldn't help but mourn for the students of Yanhuang College in his heart. The old demon is here. Your good days are coming to an end. A new round of brutality was about to begin. Cough, cough. Uncle Cheng, you've really put a lot of thought into this. The students will definitely be grateful to you. I'll go back first. Li Zixuan said some polite words and then ran away. As for whether the students would be grateful to old Cheng, Even if he used his but to think, he knew that they definitely wouldn't. Old master, old madam, young madam, this is great news. Young master has been conferred the title of Marquis. At the first courtyard of Cloud Mountain, Lisa Schwan still hadn't returned home, but Sanbao had already rushed into the courtyard while shouting loudly. If it were any other day, he would definitely be reprimanded for being so rash and noisy. But today, there was too much information in his words. Li Jingma and Mrs. Li, who had heard the news, couldn't help but be stunned. What? Sanbao, you said that Xian has been conferred the title of Marquis? Li Jingma's old face was flushed red with excitement. He looked at Sanbao and asked with a trembling voice. Of course, he hoped that Sanbao was telling the truth, but he was afraid that he had misheard and rejoiced for nothing. Madame Li and Han Yushi also looked at Sanbao with hopeful expressions. Yes, it's true. Old master, young master has really been conferred the title of Marquis Yong and personally conferred by His Majesty, with 600 households. It's all over Chang'an now. Everyone is saying that young master is the youngest marquis since the establishment of the Tang Empire. Sanbao wasn't nervous at all, as this was the first time he had become the center of attention. Or perhaps his excitement had diluted the nervousness in his heart, and he spoke loudly with excitement. It's true, it's actually true. Madam, Xian has become a marquis. Xian is promising. Li Jingma was stunned for a long time before he finally reacted. He held his wife's hands and said excitedly, he used to be a businessman. Although he didn't lack in food and drink, the status of businessmen was low since ancient times. Even his descendants couldn't enter the imperial court as officials. He had only hoped that his son would be able to live a safe and healthy life. He had never thought that his son would one day become an official. However, ever since Li Zixuan returned from Longhu Mountain, he had given him too many surprises. First, he was conferred the title of Marquis. Then he was promoted to third-grade crown Prince Zhan Shi, and now he had become a Marquis. All of this sounded like a dream, but reality told him that it was all real. How could Li Jingma not be excited? That's great. My Xian is promising. He has become a Marquis. The excitement in Madame Li's heart was no less than Li Jingma's. She was old and a little sentimental. At this moment, tears welled up in her eyes. Han Yushi stood at the side and looked at her parents-in-law silently. Her eyes were filled with joy. She was happy for her husband and for the whole family. Sister Yushi, what is a marquis? Is it delicious? Why are father and mother so happy? Lan the little cutie, came out of nowhere. She tugged at Han Yushi's sleeve, looked up, and blinked her bright eyes as she asked. Although Han Yushi had been married to Li Zixuan for a long time, Lan still called Han Yushi Sister Yushi and not sister-in-law. It wasn't that no one corrected her, but the little girl didn't listen to them. Lan don't talk nonsense. A marquis isn't for eating, it's a very, very big official. In the future, Lan you will be the marquis younger sister. No one will dare to bully you. Hearing this little cutie's innocent words, Han Yushi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She saw Li Jingma glaring at her, as if he wanted to scold her. She quickly squatted down, stroked Lan's little head, and explained gently. Oh, so it's brother who got promoted. When brother comes back, I'll ask him for the wedding money. Lan suddenly understood. She shook her little head and said excitedly, Oh, why is it so lively today? Father, mother, wife, why are all of you here? And little sister, who are you looking for to ask for the wedding money? At this moment, Li Zixuan had already stepped through the door. When he saw the whole family in the backyard, he said with a smile, Of course it's for you, brother. When Lan saw that Li Zixuan had returned, she quickly ran to his side and shook his arm. She said with a smile, Brother, you've been promoted. Hurry up and give me the wedding money. Li Zixuan lowered his head and looked at his little sister's bright, smiling face. He couldn't help but feel a little absent-minded. Why was this the same as the children in the modern world who shouted, Congratulations, get rich, give me the red packet? He didn't know where the little girl learned this from. Chapter 791. The whole family had a happy and harmonious lunch. Li Zishuan's laziness relapsed, and he didn't even want to go to the academy. He just lay down at home and waited for the imperial edict to officially confer him the title of Marquis from the palace. Around 1 in the afternoon, Li Zishuan did not receive an imperial edict from the imperial palace, but a person did. "Oh, your highness, you're here." That's right. The person who came was Li Shaogong, the commandery prince of Hejian. When Li Zishuan received the servant's report and went downstairs to the living room, Li Shaogong was already sitting on the tiger-skin sofa and looking at the furnishings in the room curiously. "Huh, little Xian, this courtyard of yours is rather interesting." Seeing Li Zishuan come, Li Shaogong nodded and said with a smile. Li Zishuan ordered the servant to serve tea and sat down next to him. He said casually, "Your Highness, this is just my unintentional work. It's not presentable." Li Shaogong shook his head and didn't say anything. He looked at the other places in the room and said, "Haha, you're being modest in front of me now? This is not like you. Although the style of this courtyard is novel, it has its own rules and regulations. It's not something that can be built casually. Obviously, you've spent a lot of effort on it, and the furniture in the room is unique and comfortable. You still know how to enjoy life." Li Zishuan wasn't angry at all after being criticized by Li Shaogong. Instead, he said with a smile, "Haha, if your highness likes it, why don't I give you a courtyard like this?" Li Shaogong was very tempted, but he still shook his head after thinking about it. He said, "I won't accept a reward for nothing. I won't take your house for nothing." Speaking of this, he picked up the teacup brought by the servant girl and took 2 sips of tea. He continued, "When I just came here, I passed by Yanhuang College and saw the buildings in the distance. The style is quite similar to your courtyard." This queen entered the academy and saw that the students were all wearing the same clothes and were training. Although he couldn't tell what these training items were, this group of weak scholars was actually able to do such neat movements. It was really beyond this king's expectations. Handing Huairen to you before I set out to sea was the right choice. Li Zishuan thought to himself. Although Li Shaogong usually yelled at Li Huairen, his concern for his son was not vague at all. He had just returned from the sea and couldn't wait to come to Yanhuang College to see Li Huairen's situation. Perhaps this was deep fatherly love. "Your Highness is too kind," Li Zishuan said politely. Li Shaogong waved his hand and said, "There's no need to say any more. This prince should indeed thank you for this matter. Compared to before, Huairen is much more sensible. In the future, he will continue to stay at Yanhuang College." Li Zishuan naturally had no reason to refuse. The two chatted for a while, and the topic turned to the sneak attack at sea. "Speaking of that sea battle, this prince is somewhat sorry. You entrusted Meng Yuliang to this prince, but who would have thought that he would almost die at sea that night? This prince was thoughtless." Li Shaogong said apologetically, "Your Highness, what are you saying? The weather is unpredictable, and people are uncertain. Some things, no matter how prepared you are, will always be unexpected. Fortunately, Meng Yuliang is fine. This is the best outcome. Otherwise, I really wouldn't know how to face that child Meng Wenhao." Li Zishuan couldn't help but sigh. "Oh, right. Dare I ask your Highness, just what was the identity of the mysterious expert who saved Meng Yuliang that night?" According to previous intelligence, Li Zishuan only knew that Meng Yuliang had been saved by a mysterious expert at the critical moment, but he had no idea who that expert was, which was why he asked this question. Li Shaogong suddenly fell silent. After a long silence, he said, "This prince cannot reveal that person's identity. If fate wills it, you should be able to meet him in a few days. What this prince can tell you is that this person is extremely skilled in martial arts and is one of the top experts in the world. When this prince entered Fainio capital alone, he was by my side. The identity of the dragon-bearded guest was hard to say. After all, he was the man who had fought for the world with Lier. Although he had taken the initiative to withdraw in the end, he had still violated some taboos, which was why Li Shaogong was being so vague." Hearing him say this, Li Zishuan became even more curious. At the same time, he pondered in his heart. In the world today, how many people could be called top experts? After thinking for a long time, he still couldn't think of a reason. so he simply stopped thinking about it. Since your highness does not wish to reveal it, this child will quietly wait at home for that person to come as a guest. Li Xiaogong chuckled. After chatting a little longer with Li Zishuan, he got up and bid farewell. But not long after he left, the villa welcomed another guest. It was Wang Renbiao. Hey, today's guests really come in waves. Li Zishuan quietly said to himself. Little Xian, congratulations. Congratulations on being made a marquis. The moment Wang Renbiao entered the room, he cupped his hands in congratulations. To tell the truth, Li Zishuan's meteoric rise had surprised both him and his father. Half a year ago, this young man had just returned to Chang'an from the mountains, but half a year later, he had become the marquis of the great Tang. The fickleness of the world truly made one sigh with emotion. Thank you very much. Renbiao, come in and have a seat. Seeing Wang Renbiao, Li Zishuan suddenly remembered that he was looking for him for something. It was about rubber, so he hurriedly went forward to greet him. Little Xian, I came to find you because you asked me to send someone to help you find rubber. Sure enough, Wang Renbiao sat down and went straight to the point. Li Zishuan hurriedly got up and asked excitedly, How is it? Did you find it? Wang Renbiao smiled and said, This thing is really difficult to find. The steward of the Wang family's fleet led people to search for at least a dozen island countries. Finally, on a long island in the South China Sea, they found a forest with tree trunks that could flow white sap. But the trees were much thicker than what you described before. Basically, one person couldn't hold it. Later, the steward of the Wang family's fleet released all the sap from the trees in the forest and transported it back to the ship. Now it's all at the dock. Li Zishuan was overjoyed. He realized that today was really his lucky day. Good things were happening one after another. That's great, that's great. I didn't expect you to really find rubber. Renbiao, you've helped me a lot this time. Let's go and have a look now. Li Zishuan stood up and said eagerly. Chapter 792. According to modern historians, rubber was originally produced in the Brazilian Amazon rainforest. Later, when Columbus returned from America, he brought rubber back to Europe. Later, with the beginning of the British colonial era, they introduced rubber trees to Southeast Asia and opened plantations there to produce rubber. Therefore, according to modern history books, it was impossible for rubber trees to appear in Southeast Asia during the Tang Dynasty. However, the reason why Li Zishuan asked the Wang family's fleet to help him find rubber trees was because he was betting. He was betting that there were wild rubber trees in Southeast Asia a long time ago. Southeast Asia's unique climate conditions were too suitable for rubber trees to grow. This could be seen from a set of data. Although rubber trees originated from Brazil, in modern times, Southeast Asia accounted for more than 90% of the world's natural rubber production, while Brazil accounted for less than 1%. The reason for this pattern, in addition to specific historical conditions, was also inseparable from Southeast Asia's unique climate conditions. Therefore, Li Zishuan guessed that there were wild rubber trees in Southeast Asia before the Tang Dynasty, or even longer. Later, they went extinct for some reason. When the British colonists introduced rubber from Brazil to Southeast Asia, the world thought that rubber originated from Brazil. He had to admit that the reason why he had this kind of wishful thinking was because he was desperate. After all, the Tang Dynasty did not have a fleet that could cross the Pacific Ocean and reach America. But fortunately, his wishful thinking turned out to be true. The Wang family's fleet really found wild rubber in Southeast Asia. How could this not make him ecstatic? At this time, he did not care about waiting at home for the imperial edict. He directly urged Wang Renbiao to follow him to the dock. Therefore, the tragic Wang Renbiao, who had just entered the house, did not even warm up on the stool. No, he did not even warm up on the sofa before he was called out again. Here, the rubber is still in the wooden bucket. It's still on the ship. Xiao Xian, wait a moment. I'll get someone to find a small boat and bring you to the big ship to take a look. When they arrived at the dock, Wang Renbiao pointed to a few large ships on the river with the Wang family's flag and said, Thank you for your trouble. Li Zishuan clasped his hands and thanked him. Wang Renbiao smiled and turned to leave. Li Zixuan observed the scene at the docks. Compared to the morning, there were a lot fewer people and ships. The 500 searched ships of the imperial court were all gone. It seemed like Xiao Yu and Yin Lide had already made arrangements. Most of the official ships were probably already on their way to Luoyang. Although the official ships had been arranged, the task of the two big shots of the imperial court was not over yet. They still needed to arrange for officials on the spot to levy taxes on the merchant ships that had participated in the Southern Sea trade. This job was not easy. The two old fellows were setting up tables on the pier to serve as a temporary office. There wasn't even a canopy above their heads. Compared to some people in the future, these two old fellows' outfits were really shabby. However, they were the real public servants of the people and deserved everyone's respect. Uncle Yin, Elder Xiao, the two of you are still busy. Li Zixuan walked over and greeted the two out of respect for the revolutionaries of the older generation who were really doing practical things. Yo, little Xian, you're here? I heard that you were conferred the title of Marquis by His Majesty in the morning court. Congratulations. Hearing this, Yin Lide raised his head and said with a smile. He knew that his son, Yin Xiaoning, seemed to have a girlfriend in the academy. Although the other party wasn't a daughter of a prestigious family, she was the daughter of the current generation's Mo family. This identity was nothing to other families, but to the Yin family, which was a family of engineers, it was a big deal. In general, Yin Lide approved of this marriage. He knew that his son was obsessed with construction machinery all day long and was like a blockhead. He didn't expect that his son would actually find a partner now. This made Yin Lide happy and grateful to Li Zixuan. Xiao Yu nodded and smiled at Li Zixuan as a greeting. Thank you, Uncle Yin. The title of Marquis is just His Majesty's favor. Li Zixuan replied with a smile. Then he used his hand to fan his face and said to Yin Lide and Xiao Yu, It's such a hot day. Why don't the two of you get someone to set up a shed? If something bad happens to the sun, it will be a great loss to the Tang Empire. Sigh, we don't have the time. Yin Lide sighed. He pointed to the endless boats on the river and said, That's not the case. The official boats of the imperial court are fine. Most of them have turned around and headed to Luoyang. However, there are more than 1,000 civilian boats. It's very troublesome to calculate the value of the goods on their boats. Almost all the officials of the Ministry of Civil Affairs are here today. Even so, it's unlikely that all the boats will be able to unload before dark. When Li Zixuan heard this, he also felt that the amount of work Yin Lide and Xiao Yu were facing was too large. The old officials of the Ministry of Civil Affairs were using more traditional calculation methods, and the speed of their calculations was simply too slow. Although Lier had issued a decree a few months ago to promote the new type of mathematics throughout the country, in the face of a new knowledge, it would always take some time to accept and digest it. Some people were older, and their ability to accept new knowledge was worse, so the speed at which they absorbed it was slower. We can't go on like this. Uncle Yin, Elder Xiao, I'll get someone to set up a few sheds for you. I'll also send some ice and cold water over. Otherwise, it'll be bad if you get a heat stroke. Li Zixuan said as he wiped his sweat. Yin Lide and Xiao Yu didn't have the time to do this, but he did. Seeing two old men over 50 silently contributing to the country under the scorching sun, he couldn't help but feel a little uncomfortable. But it was precisely because of people like them that the great Tang would gradually grow stronger until it was invincible. The two old men smiled and didn't refuse Li Zixuan's good intentions. The officials of the Ministry of Civil Affairs who were busy calculating the accounts seemed to have heard this conversation. At this moment, they couldn't help but write even more cheerfully. Marquis Yong, and this old man heard that you have a group of students who are rather proficient in calculation. Why don't you call them over to help you? Xiao Yu raised his head and smiled at Li Zixuan. Ever since the imperial court had introduced the new type of mathematics, he had privately studied the mathematics textbook that Li Zixuan had compiled. Even someone as picky as him had to admit that the new type of mathematics had an incomparable advantage in calculating speed. That was why he had said this now. Li Zixuan froze for a moment, then bitterly smiled and said, Elder Xiao, it's not that this little one isn't willing to cooperate, But that group of students of mine is still undergoing military training at the academy. They can't leave. Chapter 793. If it was in the past, Li Zixuan wouldn't have minded his students coming over to help Xiaoyu settle the score. On the contrary, he would have been more than happy to do so because it could give his students some social experience. After all, Yinhuang Academy cultivated practical talents. But now, Cheng Yaojin was probably brutally training the students, but he wouldn't call the students away. How could this be? It's an emergency, so it won't take up too much of their time. Presumably, missing half a day of training won't have much of an impact on the students, right? Regarding the military training at Yinhuang College, the ministers in the imperial court more or less knew a little about it. Some of them even went to watch it live. Xiaoyu had also been there. It was undeniable that when they saw a group of weak scholars marching in an orderly formation on the field and shouting loud slogans, they couldn't help but feel shocked. Starting from the Western Zhou Dynasty, the official courses were divided into national studies and local studies. There were also primary school and university levels. The university level used the 6 arts as the standard curriculum. Etiquette, music, archery, driving, calligraphy, and mathematics were the 6 basic skills that students needed to master. Archery and driving were the most primitive forms of military training in ancient times. The teachers were usually directly appointed by military officers. During the Qin and Han dynasties, the importance of military training for students gradually decreased, and the military training in schools began to decline. As Confucianism was regarded as orthodox, the 6 arts became the 6 classics of Confucianism. The content of military education disappeared, and the function of military training weakened into a ritual program. During the Sui dynasty, martial arts and literature began to greatly reduce military equipment. The focus of national education changed from martial arts to literature, and the imperial examination gradually began to become mainstream. At the beginning of the Tang Dynasty, the national policy of emphasizing martial arts in wartime and literature in peacetime was established. At this time, the method of selecting scholars was still biased towards the imperial examination. The school became an accessory to the imperial examination, and military training was abolished. In addition, Confucianism began to germinate, and gradually the educational concept of emphasizing reading over practice and meditation over activities gradually formed. During the Empress Wu Zetian, the civil and military examinations were separated. The civil and military examinations were not tested on martial arts. In order to obtain fame, the students had no time to study military courses, and military training was gradually abandoned. Therefore, even though he was shocked, Xiaoyu still disapproved of Yinhuang College's military training. However, the college was run by Li Zixuan. As an outsider, he couldn't do anything about it. Therefore, he didn't raise any objections from beginning to end. Li Zixuan pursed his lips and didn't say anything. Of course, missing half a day of military training wouldn't affect the students much. However, today's timing was a little special. Old Cheng had just gone to the academy in the afternoon. He could imagine that the group of brats in class 1 of the academy were probably in so much pain under Old Cheng's evil claws that they wished they were dead. If he wanted to pull the students over, Old Cheng would definitely go crazy. Elder Xiao, missing half a day of military training is of course not a big deal. However, today is a little special. Lu Guogong is conducting special training for the students. If I were to disturb them at this time, I'm afraid it would be very inconvenient. When Xiaoyu heard this, he immediately blew his beard and glared. Outrageous! Is Cheng Jijia's special training more important than collecting business taxes for the imperial court? Go and get the students to come over. If Cheng Jijia isn't convinced, he can come and reason with me. Li Zixuan suddenly felt helpless. Since he had already said this, he had to be a living bodhisattva today and rescue the students who were in deep trouble. Ahem, Elder Xiao, please wait a moment. I'll send someone to the courtyard to inform the students to come over. Yinhuang College. As Li Zixuan expected, ever since Cheng Yaojin, the big devil, came to the academy in the afternoon, the students' training suddenly increased by more than 50%. Today's weather was so hot, but the students of each class could still be seen running tirelessly on the field. Large beads of sweat rolled down their foreheads. The camouflage uniforms on their bodies looked as if they had just been fished out of the water. A gentle twist could probably wring out water. Cheng Yaojin held a bamboo stick and followed behind the students of Class 1, as if he was herding sheep. Huff, huff. I'm so tired. You say, Hi Duke Liu. Don't you know how to rest at home if you have nothing better to do? Why did you come to the academy to join in the fun? Sigh. If only father could cancel the rest period. Yes, just temporarily. Let us endure this period of military training first. The little fatty was sweating profusely on the field. As he ran, the fat on his body jiggled. Therefore, according to the theory of physics, if he ran the same distance, he would need to do more work and consume more energy. In addition, his foundation was weak to begin with. Naturally, he would be more tired than others. At this time, Li Tai wiped the sweat on his forehead and muttered in his heart. It couldn't be helped. Old Devil Chung was really too abnormal. When he came in the afternoon, he made them run as if their lives depended on it. Those who couldn't run were directly thrown into the small dark room to fend for themselves. He was simply too cruel. General Chung, General Chung. At this time, there was a shout from the back of the team. Turn right. Enter the field. Cheng Yaojin looked back and saw Mo Zhong running in his direction. He led the students from the track into the field and then shouted again, Stop! The students of Class 1 immediately stopped in their tracks. What's the matter? Can't you see that I'm in the middle of military training? Cheng Yaojin turned around and glanced at Mo Zhong as he said with some dissatisfaction. General Chung, Yamacho asked someone to send a message. He wants a class of students who are proficient in arithmetic to temporarily stop their military training and go to the pier outside Plum Village to wait for orders. Mo Zhong felt a little guilty when old Devil Chung looked at him like this. However, he still relayed Li Zishuan's order. When Cheng Yaojin heard this, he began to look at Mo Zhong strangely. If he didn't know him well, he would have suspected that Mo Zhong was a spy sent by a student to deliberately spread false information. Why does Xiaoxian want students who are proficient in arithmetic? Mo Zhong cupped his fists and said, I don't know. I only heard that it was the order of the Minister of Civil Affairs, Elder Xiao. That old fox Xiaoyu? Cheng Yaojin frowned and didn't say anything. The eyes of the students on the field suddenly lit up. Their chance had come. As long as it wasn't military training, they were willing to do anything. Moreover, they had no arithmetic, and he was the Minister of Civil Affairs. This meant that this job must be related to accounting. In this case, they had to go. Quickly agree, quickly agree. Accounting makes me happy. This king wants to go and settle accounts. Li Tai stood upright and looked at Cheng Yaojin's back from the corner of his eyes as he madly muttered in his heart. As if he had heard his thoughts, Cheng Yaojin paused for a moment and said, Then let them go first. I'll go and train the students of Class 2 in the afternoon. The students of Class 1 were ecstatic when they heard this. However, they were afraid that extreme joy would lead to sorrow, so they didn't shout out loud. At this moment, they were extremely grateful to Xiao Yu, the Minister of Civil Affairs. Chapter 794. On the pier, Li Zishuan was talking to Yen Lai and the others when Wang Renbiao came back. He first greeted the two leaders of the imperial court, then looked at Li Zishuan and said, Little Xian, I've already prepared the small boat. I'll take you to the big ship to see the goods. Okay. Li Zishuan nodded and was about to leave with Wang Renbiao when Xiao Yu suddenly said, Marquion, do you have goods on the Wang family ship? Li Zishuan didn't know what Xiao Yu meant. He turned around and answered, Yes, before the imperial court's fleet went south, I asked Renbiao to help me bring back some specialties for Nanyang. Xiao Yu twirled his beard and laughed. Ha ha, that's great. You can ask your students to help you settle the accounts. I'll let your goods reach the shore earlier. Take it as repayment. Li Zishuan couldn't help but laugh. He didn't expect Xiao Yu to open the back door for him. This was good too. He didn't have to wait for half a day at the pier. Ha! Thank you, Elder Xiao. Li Zixuan thanked Xiao Yu, then followed Wang Renbiao onto the boat and went to the Wang family's main fleet. Xiao Xian, come and take a look. Is this the rubber you need? The boat followed the Ba River and rowed for more than a mile before reaching the Wang family's fleet. From this, one could see how many ships were waiting dock. If Xiao Yu didn't open the back door for Li Zixuan, they would have to wait for an entire afternoon. After boarding a large ship, Wang Renbiao said to Li Zixuan behind him. Li Zixuan responded, his heart full of anticipation. Many modern industrial products required rubber, and he really needed it. A person who seemed to be in charge of the ship led the two of them into the cabin. They saw that the huge cabin was filled with rows and rows of wooden barrels. Young master, Marquis, this is the rubber we brought back from Nanyang. Please take a look. The guide bowed and smiled at Wang Renbiao and Li Zixuan. At this time, Li Zixuan couldn't be bothered to exchange pleasantries with others. He took a big stride and arrived in front of a wooden barrel. He deftly opened the lid and saw that it was filled with a white, glue-like liquid. When he sniffed it carefully, he could smell a faint fragrance. What else could this be but natural rubber? Oh no, it should be called natural latex. In Li Zixuan's previous life, when he was in university, one of his university classmates opened a factory that produced latex pillows and mattresses. The rich second generation generally liked to show off. When he was in his second year of university, that guy invited everyone in his class to visit his factory. That was the first time Li Zixuan saw what natural latex looked like. It was also from that visit that Li Zixuan learned that natural latex didn't have a pungent smell. Instead, it had a faint fragrance. Some people bought natural latex pillows from the internet, but when they bought them, they would come back with a pungent smell. This meant that you bought a fake product. It was synthetic rubber, not natural. Little Xian, how is it? Is this the rubber you need? Wang Renbiao asked worriedly when he saw Li Zixuan staring at the wooden barrel for a long time without saying anything. Yes, this is rubber. This is the rubber I need. Li Zixuan recovered from his chaotic thoughts. His voice was unusually excited. Renbiao, it's all thanks to you this time. How much rubber did you bring back in total? From his voice, Wang Renbiao could hear a trace of expectation. This made Wang Renbiao a little surprised. One must know that this young man in front of him held a high position at such a young age. Moreover, he had a huge family fortune. It was really hard to understand that he had something to look forward to. Wang Renbiao looked at the manager beside him, indicating that he should answer this question. The middle-aged manager didn't dare to be negligent. He cupped his hands towards Li Zixuan and said, replying to Marquis, we found the rubber on the island. The island was full of rubber trees. We filled 20 boats, but we didn't finish loading them. However, in order to not fall behind the team, we only brought back 20 boats of rubber. Each boat was loaded with about 50,000 pounds of rubber. If each boat was 50,000 pounds, 20 boats would be 1 million pounds. Li Zixuan's breathing suddenly became hurried. 1 million pounds. That was more than 500 tons. I'm rich. I'm rich. There were only 3 words in Li Zixuan's mind right now, and that was to strike it rich. Such a huge amount of rubber was enough for him to do a lot of things. That's great. Renbiao, I won't beat around the bush, but I'll remember this kindness. I'll have someone send the money to your house now. Get someone to row these boats upstream for another 3 li. That's the new workshop of Strange Taste Pavilion. Just move the rubber there. According to the original agreement, if the Wang family's fleet found rubber in Nanyang, Li Zixuan would have to pay 400 strings of cash for each boat of rubber. Of course, the 400 strings of cash was a price of friendship, because a boat of spices from Nanyang would definitely cost more than 400 strings of cash. The main reason was that Wang Renbiao was looking for Li Zixuan to buy a large number of compasses to ensure the safety of the Wang family's fleet. It could also be said that it was an exchange of interests. Haha, Xiao Xian, you're too kind. Wang Renbiao replied with a smile. At the same time, he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. After this incident, the relationship between the Wang family and Li Zixuan was even stronger. This was more valuable than anything else. After all, this young man in front of him had become a founding marquis before the age of 15. His future achievements were simply immeasurable. After exiting the cabin, Wang Rinbiao ordered the steward on the boat to start sailing. They bypassed the boats in front of them and headed straight for the dock. Such a blatant act of cutting in line would, of course, anger some people. However, after seeing that it was the merchant ship of the Wang family of Taiyuan, most people shut their mouths. The reputation of the Wang family of Taiyuan was not just for show. There were also people who weren't afraid of the Wang family of Taiyuan. However, after seeing Li Zixuan at the bow of the boat, they all hesitated. After a while, 20 fleets full of rubber arrived at the front and began to dock. Xiaoyu was a man of his word. He had already sent officials from the Ministry of Civil Affairs to wait at the dock to calculate the total value of the goods on board. Perhaps it was because Li Zixuan had now been promoted to a marquis, or perhaps it was because Li Zixuan had sent people to set up sheds for the officials of the Ministry of Civil Affairs at the dock, and even sent ice cubes and iced water. The officials of the Ministry of Civil Affairs who came to receive the goods were so enthusiastic that Li Zixuan was a little uncomfortable. However, facing the buckets of white, gelatinous liquid on board, the officials of the Ministry of Civil Affairs who came to receive the goods couldn't help but feel troubled. How should they value this stuff? How much should they charge? Chapter 795. Marquis, what is this thing? How much should we tax it according to the market price? The middle-aged official from the Ministry of Civil Affairs looked at the white latex in the wooden bucket in the cabin. He reached in and touched it, then put his hand next to his nose and sniffed it. In the end, he still couldn't recognize what it was, so he walked behind Li Zixuan and asked with an awkward expression, "Oh, I call this thing rubber. As for the market price, I really don't know. After all, this thing has never appeared in Chang'an City." Li Zixuan didn't make things difficult for the official and answered truthfully. According to the rules, we have to collect tax based on 10% of the total value of the goods. What should we do now? The middle-aged official suddenly frowned and said. Li Zixuan glanced in the direction of Yan Lai and Xiaoyu, then smiled and said, "If you can't make up your mind, go and ask Elder Xiao. However, I can give you a reference price. I bought this rubber from the Wang family's fleet. It's 400 strings of coins per ship. All right, you can go and ask." He didn't mind paying more or less tax, but it was obvious that he was following the rules. If he paid more or less, what would the people behind him do? Yes, this official understands. Thank you, Marquis, for your advice. The middle-aged official cupped his hands to Li Zixuan, then turned and left. Not long after, he turned back. Marquis, Elder Xiao said that the tax will be based on the price you bought the rubber from the Wang family. In fact, Xiaoyu knew very well that since Li Zixuan valued rubber so much, it meant that its value was definitely extraordinary. At least, it was definitely worth more than 400 strings of coins per ship. But so what if he understood? Only Li Zixuan could make use of this thing's value. The others didn't even know how to use it, so it was difficult to appraise its actual value. It was better to be straightforward and do Li Zixuan a favor at the same time. All right, send someone up to take a look. There are a total of 20 ships worth 8,000 strings of coins, which is the tax of 800 strings of coins. If there's no problem, I'll write you a note later. You can take this note directly to Yunshan to get the money. Li Zixuan smiled without batting an eyelid, then said to the middle-aged official. In his heart, he was thinking that Elder Xiao was quite considerate. At least he didn't help just now. Yes, Marquis. Please wait here for a moment. This official send someone to check the ships. The middle-aged official responded and went to arrange it. It didn't take long for the inspection to be completed. Li Zixuan wrote him a note for 800 strings of coins and asked him to go to Yinshan Villa to get the money. He wouldn't carry so much money with him. He wasn't crazy. The fleet full of rubber left the dock and sailed upstream along the Ba River. As soon as Li Zixuan got off the ship, he saw a group of students in camouflage uniforms coming from the north. Who else could it be other than Li Tai and Cheng Chimo? Yamacho, what orders do you have for us to come here? The group of students also saw Li Zixuan. They immediately rushed over and asked. Li Tai didn't say anything. The little fatty was so hot that he was panting. Besides, He also knew why Li Zishuan called them over. Didn't they see so many officials at the dock burying their heads in writing? Anyway, for him, escaping from Cheng Yaojin's evil clutches was the best thing to do. Meng Wenhao looked at the densely packed ships on the river. His face was full of excitement, but there was also a trace of uncertainty in his eyes. At this time, Li Zishuan looked at the students and smiled. The fleet that was previously organized by the imperial court to go south has returned today. His Majesty ordered the Ministry of Civil Affairs to collect tax from all the ships. Because the amount of money involved is huge, it's more troublesome to calculate. Elder Shao wants you to come over and help collect the tax as soon as possible so that these ships can dock and unload as soon as possible. As soon as Li Zishuan's voice fell, the students suddenly became excited. Many of them were familiar with accounting because a few months ago, when Yanhuang Academy was being built, they also went to help for a while. Most of them were at the construction site to help Yin Xiaoning calculate the materials, consumption, and so on. When Meng Wenhao heard Li Zishuan say that these ships were the fleet that went south, his body finally couldn't help but tremble. This was because he knew that his father was in one of the ships on the river. After so long, it was the first time that he and his father were so close to each other. He really wanted to find his father right now. But where could he find him with so many ships? Moreover, he still hadn't completed the task that Li Zishuan gave them. Mother, quick, look! Isn't that my brother? Not far away, among the group of people who were welcoming their relatives and friends, a little girl suddenly accused the group of students in camouflage clothing behind them and said to the middle-aged woman beside her, "Yaya, don't talk nonsense. Your brother is still studying at the academy." The middle-aged woman didn't believe her. She patted her daughter's little head and said, this pair of mother and daughter were Meng Wenhao's mother and Yaya. "Mother, that's really my brother. Yaya didn't lie to you." Unexpectedly, after being reprimanded, Yaya still pulled Meng Wenhao's mother and said. Meng Wenhao's mother turned around suspiciously. When she looked in the direction of her daughter's finger, she was suddenly stunned. On the other side, Li Zishuan brought more than 40 students from Class 1 to Xiaoyu's place. Xiaoyu personally assigned them tasks. Li Zishuan seemed to have noticed Meng Wenhao's abnormal mood. He walked over and patted the latter's shoulder and said in a low voice, "Your father has profited from this disaster. Your family's good days are coming soon. After the Feng Jihua's fleet docks, you can leave first to reunite with your father. But don't forget to return to the academy before dark." Meng Wenhao obviously didn't know that his father had been promoted to an official, but this didn't stop him from being grateful to Li Zishuan. "Thank you, Yamacho." He clasped his fists at Li Zishuan excitedly. The waiting time was always long. At around 5 in the afternoon, it was the Feng Jihua's fleet's turn to dock. Meng Wenhao's eyes were sharp. He took the initiative to follow the officials of the Ministry of Civil Affairs to welcome them. After a while, he saw the man on the ship whose blood was thicker than water. Father, because the weather was too hot, Meng Yuliang was shirtless at the moment. In this way, the dozens of scars on his body were exposed. When Meng Wenhao saw them, the corners of his eyes couldn't help but sour. Why are you here? And Yaya, Yulan, why are you all here?" It was Meng Wenhao's mother and daughter. At this moment, when they saw the Feng Jihua's fleet docking, they also followed. The family that had been separated for nearly 5 months was now reunited at the murky harbor. Chapter 796. Not far from the dock of the Bar River, there was a tea shed. It was specially designed for merchants to rest and quench their thirst. A few hundred steps to the east, one could see some restaurants, shops, grocery stores, and so on. It was like a small market dedicated to the dock of the Bar River. "Husband, the injuries on your body." In the shabby tea shed, Meng Wenhao's family of 4 was sitting around a tea table. When Meng Wenhao's mother saw her husband gulping down 2 bowls of herbal tea, a trace of heartache flashed through her eyes. She paused for a moment before asking. In fact, according to Feng Jihua's original intention, Meng Yuliang could take his wife and children directly home for a reunion, but Meng Yuliang refused because the goods on Feng Jihua's ship had not been unloaded. He felt that he could not leave yet. However, He did not want his family to suffer with him, so he led his wife and children to the tea shed next to him to rest for a while. After that, he planned to go back alone and continue to work. At this time, hearing his wife's words of deep concern, Meng Yuliang hurriedly interrupted, "Those are just some minor injuries. It doesn't get in the way. When going out, how could there not be any bumps and bruises? Don't make a fuss and scare the children." He did not intend to tell his family about the encounter with the pirates at sea. Even if it was dangerous at the time, now that he had returned safely, what was the point of mentioning it? Mentioning it would only make his family worry. There was no benefit at all, but he did not know that Meng Wenhao, who was sitting quietly on the side, already knew the complete story. "Father, after you come back this time, don't go out to sea again, okay? The sea is stormy and there are many bad people. It is easy to encounter danger. Although it is said that wealth comes from danger, your son can now support himself and the family. Don't take the risk of going out to sea again, okay?" When Meng Wenhao saw that his father was deliberately covering up the scars on his body, he instantly understood what his father was planning. Considering his mother and sister's tolerance, he didn't expose his father's lie on the spot. However, what he said hinted at something. Meng Yuliang heard this and looked at his son with some uncertainty. What did he mean by, "The sea is stormy and there are many bad people"? Did his son know about the pirate attack that night? That was impossible. Logically speaking, his son was just a commoner. How could he receive news from the sea? "All right, I promise you." Looking deeply at Meng Wenhao, Meng Yuliang replied with a firm expression. He had just escaped death not long ago, so he knew better than anyone else the dangers of the sea. To be honest, after experiencing this life and death crisis, he didn't want to go out to sea again. It wasn't that he was afraid of death, but he was afraid that no one would take care of his wife and children after he died. "Oh, great. That's great. Daddy finally doesn't have to be away from home for so long in the future. Otherwise, Yaya will think badly of you." Of course, Yaya couldn't understand the code between her brother and her father, but she could understand that her father would never go out to sea again. Just this point alone was enough to make the little girl happy for a long time. "Huh, is that so? Yaya misses Daddy that much." Hearing his daughter's innocent words, Meng Yuliang laughed in a carefree mood. Yes. Yaya missed Daddy a lot when Daddy wasn't around." Yaya nodded and said crisply, Daddy also misses Yaya. Yaya, wait for me. Daddy will bring you delicious food this time. I'll give it to you when we get home tonight." It was said that a daughter was her father's lover in his previous life. This point was really not wrong. Meng Yuliang wanted his son to succeed, but he doted on his daughter endlessly. He stroked Yaya's little head and laughed heartily. After all, the little girl was still young. Hearing that her father brought her delicious food, her two little eyes suddenly curved into a small crescent moon. She sweetly said, "Thank you, Daddy." Meng Yuliang smiled, then stood up and prepared to go back to the dock to work. At this moment, there was a sudden commotion from the docks. The few of them followed the sound and saw 4 people dressed in green, round-necked, narrow-sleeved robes. They seemed to be the eunuchs of the palace. "Where is Meng Yuliang? Where is Meng Yuliang? Come quickly to receive the decree." Faintly, Meng Yuliang seemed to hear the leader of the eunuchs calling out his name. He wondered if he had misheard, or if there just happened to be someone with the same name and surname as him on the docks. Otherwise, how could a nobody like him enter the eyes of the nobles in the palace? "Father, they seem to be calling you." Obviously, Meng Wenhao also noticed the situation there. He pulled Meng Yuliang's sleeve and said. At this moment, the words that Li Zixuan had said to him half an hour ago suddenly echoed in his mind. "Your father has profited from a disaster this time. Your family's good days are about to come. After a while, when Feng Jihua's fleet docks, you can leave first to reunite with your father. But don't forget to return to the academy before dark." Profited from this disaster? Good days? Eunuchs in the palace? Connecting all the signs together, Meng Wenhao's heart suddenly had a bold idea. Oh no, it should be a bold guess. How is this possible? I guess they are not calling me father. Meng Yuliang heard his son say so. He was shocked and doubtful, and stuttered. "Father, it's you. Look, that's the Amacho-S people coming here." I think they're calling you over. Meng Wenhao's eyes were sharp and saw Mo Zhong rushing over. He could not help but confirm the guess in his heart. Master Meng, the angels are coming. Quickly go and receive the edict. Just as they were talking, Mo Zhong had already run over and said in a hurried tone. Meng Yuliang trembled and quickly waved his hand. I am not a master. You could just call me Yuliang. But when he heard the second half of Mo Zhong's sentence, he could not help but be stunned. Those eunuchs were really here to find him, and they were going to give him an imperial edict? A peasant like him was going to receive an imperial edict one day? Why did it feel like a dream? Father, don't worry. It must be a good thing. Go quickly. Don't be late and let the angels wait impatiently. Meng Wenhao saw his father in a daze and quickly went forward to push him and urged him. Oh, good. Father will go right away. Meng Yuliang returned to his senses and hurriedly followed Mo Zhong towards the docks to receive the imperial edict that had descended from the heavens. Chapter 797. Oh, Marquis, why are you still here? Meng Yuliang and Meng Wenhao had just walked to the dock when they heard the eunuchs shouting at Li Zishuan. Marquis? When Meng Yuliang and Meng Wenhao heard how the eunuch addressed Li Zishuan, they couldn't help but be surprised. They secretly wondered when Li Zishuan became Marquis. One of them had just returned after drifting on the sea for several months, while the other had received closed military training in the academy. They had no way to know about the news from the outside world, so they didn't know that Li Zishuan had been conferred the title of Marquis today. His Majesty conferred Yamacho the title of Marquis of Yong, and in the morning court. This news had already spread by noon. Although the father and son of the Meng family spoke softly, Mo Zhong was a martial arts expert in the Qi transformation realm, so he naturally heard it clearly. Therefore, he explained to the two in a low voice. Yamacho has been conferred the title of Marquis. That's really great. Meng Wenhao was sincerely happy. Although Li Zishuan was strict with his students, he was always full of kindness behind his sternness. The other students of Yanhuan College might not know this, but the group of students who used to study in a mathematics school all wanted Li Zishuan to be well. At this time, Li Zishuan asked, "What does this little eunuch mean? If I'm not here, where should I go?" The little eunuch hurriedly trotted to Li Zishuan's side with a flattering face and said, "Marquis, Steward Zhao left the palace with us to deliver the decree. He's probably looking for you all over the Yunshan mountain right now. Quickly go back and receive the decree." Li Zishuan suddenly realized that the official decree to confer him the title of Marquis of Yong and hadn't been issued yet. Therefore, he bid farewell to Yen Lide and Xiao Yu, and told Li Tai and the rest to work hard and not be lazy. Only then did he get on his horse and gallop towards the Yunshan mountain. The crowd at the dock all knew that Li Zishuan had been conferred the title of Marquis after hearing the explanations of some insiders. Heartfelt congratulations immediately filled the air. Li Xianan has been conferred the title of Marquis. This is really great. Yes, Li Xianan. Oh no, it should be Marquis. Marquis of Yong, and so kind and considerate of the common people, should be conferred the title of Marquis and have a long life. Yes. With Marquis, Yong the Marquis. Who knows? Maybe it will be our family's turn. Look, compared to our village's Marquis, ours compared to heaven and earth. Yes. It's just that I don't know how big Marquis Yong and's fief is. It would be great if my family could become one of his farmers. What this person said was exactly what the others were hoping for. Li Zishuan was already famous for treating the people of his fief well. The Marquis of the Han village and Marquis of Plum village were now rich and had become the model villages of the villages near Chang and city. They were often talked about with great interest and, of course, were also the targets of envy. Yeah, I know this. Marquis Yong and's fief is in Lantian County, and there are 600 households living there. Our Lu village is definitely in there. In the future, the farmers of the Lu village will also be able to live good lives. 600 households? His Majesty is truly generous to Marquis Yong, and One must know that Duke of Lucheng Yaojin only had 700 households living in his fief. Duke of Yiqin Xiong also had 700 households living in his fief. Duke of Weili Jing only had 400 households living in his fief, and Li Zishuan, as a marquis, actually had 600 households living in his fief. Among the marquises of the great Tang Empire, Li Zishuan's fief was definitely at the forefront. One must know that it was 600 households living there. What did 600 households mean? It meant that in the future, Li Zishuan would truly be sitting on thousands of acres of fertile land and become a super landlord. In the future, even if he didn't do anything, he would still be able to live a life of extravagance. Why is it in Lantian County and not in Xinfeng County? There is no hope for our stone village now. Instantly, there were sounds of regret from the surroundings. Meng Yuliang listened to the imperial edict. After seeing Li Zishuan leave, the little eunuch looked at the father and son of the Meng family, standing at the side, and then shouted with a sharp voice. Meng Yuliang's father was so excited that he almost knelt down. Fortunately, Meng Wenhao knew the rules and knew that he didn't need to kneel down to receive the imperial edict. He quickly pulled his father, and the two of them faced the direction of the imperial palace and bowed. Meng Yuliang said in a trembling voice, Meng Yuliang respectfully listens to the imperial edict. The surrounding people turned their attention back to the two of them. They looked at Meng Yuliang and his father with a trace of doubt in their eyes. Obviously, they didn't understand why Li Er would give an imperial edict to a commoner. The emperor of the great Tang Empire decrees. Meng Yuliang, the crew member of the southbound fleet, loudly warned at the critical moment when the fleet was attacked and prevented the merchant ship from falling into the hands of the bandits. Moreover, your loyalty and bravery are unparalleled. At the moment of life and death, you forcefully changed the direction of the burning ship and saved the main fleet. I have decided to confer you the title of Xuanjie Commandant of the 8th rank and reward you with 100,000 yuan and 100 bolts of silk and satin. Imperial edict. As the little eunuch's voice fell, the crowd was in an uproar. The man in front of them, who looked incomparably humble, was actually conferred the title of Xuanjie Commandant of the 8th rank by the emperor. This made countless people envious and jealous. The person involved, Meng Yuliang, was a little dumbfounded. He didn't expect that he would be conferred the title of an official. Official, for the previous Meng Yuliang, was so far away. He only hoped that his son would study hard and in the future, he would be able to enter the imperial court as an official. He never thought that he would be one step ahead of his son to become an official. How is this possible? He is just a peasant who doesn't know how to read and write. Meng Yuliang's mother, who was worried about her husband, came to observe. At this moment, after hearing the imperial edict on one hand, she was shocked that her husband was conferred the title of an official. On the other hand, she was frightened and sad because the imperial edict mentioned the bandits and the words of life and death. Meng Yuliang's mother instantly understood how those scars on Meng Yuliang's body came about. Almost subconsciously, the image of a fierce battle in the sea appeared in her mind. Her husband was seriously injured and on the verge of death. The tears in her eyes suddenly burst out. "Mother, why are you crying?" Yaya felt a chill on her arm. She raised her head and saw that her mother was actually crying silently. The little girl immediately felt grief from the bottom of her heart and asked in a hoarse voice, "Mother is fine. Mother is fine." On the other side, Meng Wenhao saw his father in a daze and quickly shouted, "Father, father, quickly go and receive the imperial edict." Oh. Meng Yuliang suddenly came back to his senses. He put his hand on his body and rubbed it hard as if he wanted to shed a layer of skin. Then he went to the side of the little eunuch and respectfully clasped his fist and said, "Meng Yuliang receives the imperial edict. Thank you." The little eunuch squinted his eyes and handed the imperial edict to Meng Yuliang. According to reason, at this time, he should offer the wedding money, but Meng Yuliang's mind was full of confusion at this moment. How could he think of this? Fortunately, Feng Zhua heard the news and rushed over. "Happy event, very happy event. This little eunuch has worked hard all the way. Just take it as the team money." I hope little eunuch will accept it. Chapter 798. Seeing the Meng family at a loss. Feng Zhihua could only take out a small pouch with a few golden beans and hand it to the little eunuch. The little eunuch squinted his eyes and looked at Feng Zhihua. Then he quietly stuffed the pouch into his sleeve and said with a fake smile, "It is indeed worthy of celebration. Lieutenant Meng, don't forget to report to the Ministry of Personnel later." Only then did Meng Yuliang come back to his senses. He wanted to personally present the wedding money, but this time he only brought a total of 12 copper coins. Moreover, the little eunuch had already received the wedding money from Feng Zhihua. If he were to present the wedding money again, it would be very inappropriate. Therefore, he put on a smiling face and stepped forward. "Thank you for your reminder. I will go to the Ministry of Personnel tomorrow to report," the little eunuch faintly said, and then he took out an imperial edict and shouted with a sharp voice, "Where is Feng Zhihua?" Feng Zhihua, who was standing next to Meng Yuliang, suddenly opened his eyes wide and murmured in disbelief, "This eunuch, this one is Feng Zhihua. Are you calling me?" The little eunuch looked at Feng Zhihua in surprise. He didn't expect that the person who just gave him a red packet was the main character of the Second Imperial Edict. However, he still had a good impression of Feng Zhihua, who was very discerning. "And that's right. It's you. Come forward and listen to the edict," the little eunuch said in a feminine voice. "Ah, listen to the edict? Listen to the edict? Oh, okay. Feng Zhihua, listen to the Imperial Edict. Some people can maintain a very clear mind when they are bystanders. However, once something happens to them, their mind will immediately become chaotic. Feng Zhihua belongs to this kind of people. Now, his heart is still in a mess. He even stuttered when he spoke. The Tang Emperor decrees. Southbound merchant Feng Zhihua, who values friendship and righteousness. When the pirates attacked the fleet, he didn't panic in the face of danger. He joined hands with the crew to turn the tide and prevent the main fleet from suffering a huge loss. He is awarded the title of Righteous Merchant. He will live with the country for generations to show his appreciation. Wow! As soon as the little eunuch's voice fell, the surrounding people suddenly exclaimed in surprise. Feng Zhihua was stunned for a moment, and then he was ecstatic. "Feng Zhihua accepts the decree. Thank your majesty for your kindness." Since ancient times, the status of merchants had always been low, and they were often exploited by local officials. Moreover, after being exploited, they had to swallow their anger, and no one would seek justice for them. This was because the hierarchy of agriculture, industry, and commerce firmly nailed the merchants to the ground, and they would never be able to move. But now that he had the title of Righteous Merchant, at the very least, when he walked around the local government, he would encounter fewer difficulties. To Feng Zhihua, this title was as valuable as gold. More importantly, the Imperial Edict had stated that this title of Righteous Merchant would last for as long as the Great Tang existed. This meant that as long as the Great Tang existed, Feng Zhihua would always enjoy the treatment of a righteous merchant. Even if he died, this title would be passed on to his descendants. This benefit was simply too good. It could be said that Feng Zhihua had now become the object of envy of all merchants in the world. At this moment, Feng Zhihua trembled as he stepped forward to receive the Imperial Edict. Of course, it was inevitable that he stuffed a gold bean into the little eunuch's hands. But to Feng Zhihua, money was a small matter. This Imperial Edict was priceless. "All right, the edict has been passed. We should return to the palace." The little eunuch brushed his sleeves, turned around with a smile, and left with his entourage. He was rejoicing in his heart. Fortunately, he was not going to pass on the Imperial Edict to Li Zishuan. Otherwise, how could he get so much money? It was not that Li Zishuan was stingy, but he did not dare to accept the money given by Li Zishuan. "Take care, eunuch." Meng Yuliang and the others hurriedly bowed to the back of the little eunuch. After the little eunuch left, this place suddenly became a sea of joy. "Boss Feng, thank you for just now. I will return the money to you later," Meng Yuliang said. Feng Zhihua was obviously very happy. His old face was smiling like a chrysanthemum. He He waved his hands and said, "Haha, you don't need to return it? How much money can it be? It's not a problem. Yuliang, now that you have an official position, this is the most joyous thing. I didn't expect that you would be an official one step ahead of your family's Wenhao. This is really beyond my expectations." In the end, without waiting for Meng Yuliang to object, he continued with a smile and said, "Oh, let's quickly finish unloading the goods. After unloading, this old man will treat all of you to wine to celebrate for you, Yuliang, and of course for me. How can this be? How can I let Boss Feng spend money?" Feng Zhihua pretended to be angry and said, "Hey, why can't this be? Yuliang, now that you have an official position, you don't want to have any dealings with this old man?" Meng Yuliang hurriedly shook his head and said, No, 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 Boss Feng, what are you talking about? How can I, Meng Yuliang, be a villain who only cares about profits and forgets righteousness? I definitely don't mean that. You misunderstood. Feng Zhihua laughed and said, "Since you don't mean that, then you, sister-in-law, your son, and your daughter can go together later. You are not allowed to refuse. Butler Zhao, how have you been recently?" The previous incident was my fault. Otherwise, you wouldn't have gone berserk during cultivation and caused your realm to drop. At the Yunshan residence, Li Zixuan had already received the imperial edict and was chatting with Zhao Song, whom he hadn't seen for a few months. "Sigh, Marquis Owen, please don't say that. The matter of compressing my qi for cultivation was purely voluntary. You have already explained the risks involved. If something happened in the end, it can't be blamed on you. A while ago, I heard that His Majesty blamed you because of this. I felt very apologetic in my heart, and have been wanting to visit you to apologize. As for the drop in realm, so be it. We can just cultivate again." Zhao Song was drinking tea. When he heard Li Zixuan say this, he hurriedly put down his teacup and said. Li Zixuan smiled knowingly. He thought to himself that Zhao Song was an open-minded and straightforward person. One had to know that the realm of martial arts was the lifeblood of many martial artists. A drop in realm was equivalent to taking away one's life. If this happened to others, it was hard to guarantee that they wouldn't resent it. With Butler Zhao's state of mind, it's only a matter of time before you break through to the great Grandmaster realm. Let's not blame this and that. If Butler Zhao is free in the future, I will treat you to wine. More haste, less speed. In order to break through to the great Grandmaster realm, not only did one need to make a breakthrough in strength, one also needed to make a breakthrough in one's state of mind. Li Zixuan felt that the current Zhao Song looked more mature and reserved than before. In such a state, the chances of him breaking through to the great Grandmaster realm were undoubtedly higher. "Thank you for your auspicious words." Zhao Song pursed his lips and smiled faintly. Chapter 799. We haven't seen each other for a few months, but I feel that Duke Yong's martial arts have improved again. In the Yunshan residence, Zhao Song could not help but squint his eyes at the mention of the realm of martial arts. He took a good look at Li Zixuan and was immediately surprised. He could vaguely feel that the sword while on Li Zixuan's body was sharper than before. This was hard for him to accept. The young man in front of him had just broken through to the Guru realm. "Oh, really? I've been thinking about a new sword technique recently, and I haven't been practicing it deliberately." Li Zixuan hadn't paid much attention to his own realm. He just combined it with the Dugu family's solitary wind swordsmanship to improve the 9 strategies beyond the swords in his free time. To him, improving his martial arts realm wasn't the most important thing. He didn't want to improve his realm too quickly and cause his foundation to be unstable. Zhao Song was speechless. He hadn't practiced much, but his martial arts had improved so quickly. How could he, who had been practicing hard every day, endure this? He wanted to ask what kind of sword technique it was that it had such magical power, but he thought that it was taboo to inquire about other people's martial arts, so he didn't say anything. Duke Yong is really talented. No wonder he was valued by spiritual master Ling Xiu and accepted into the sect. Zhao Song sighed and then got up to leave. "It's getting late. We have to go back to the palace. If we have time in the future, We'll talk about old times with Duke Yoan. Li Zishuan got up and said, "Take care, Butler Zhao." "Hey, Wen Hao, I heard that your father was promoted to an official. Congratulations." With the help of Class 1 of Yanhuang College's students, the ships at the dock were finally unloaded before dark. Meng Wenhao didn't go to the banquet with his family because he had to rush back to the academy before dark. In the Yanhuang College's cafeteria, Li Tai, Sun Zifan, Cheng Chumo, and the others all congratulated Meng Wenhao. Although they were busy with the accounts in the afternoon, they had also noticed the movement over there. It was just that they didn't have time to care about it at that time. "Thank you." In the face of these congratulatory words from his classmates, Meng Wenhao politely responded with a forced smile. However, in his heart, he was bitterly laughing. Was this really worth congratulating? Meng Wenhao felt that this was not worth congratulating. He even felt that if he could, he would rather not have the Xianjie chaplain as long as his father was safe and sound. Tomorrow is Friday. It's finally the holidays again. Wenhao, you become a rich man now. You have to treat us to a meal when the time comes. Cheng Chumo laughed heartily. This time, Li Er not only rewarded the Meng family with a Xianjie commandant, but also a lot of money. That was why he said that Meng Wenhao was now a rich man. That's how it should be. In the past, Wenhao has received a lot of care from all of you. It's time to treat all of you to a drink. Although Meng Wenhao's mind wasn't here, he still replied. The sharp-eyed Li Tai noticed the change in Meng Wenhao's emotions, but he didn't say anything. "Hey, speaking of which, this is the 3rd week, right? The 1-month military training period is about to end. We can finally relax. Now, I finally understand how blissful it is to sit in the classroom and listen to lectures." Sun Zifan, the little fatty, said with a face full of emotion. Calling him a little fatty now wasn't very appropriate. After such a long period of military training, his physique was now at an average level. He couldn't be considered fat at all. At most, he was a little sturdy. As for Li Tai, he had also lost a lot of fat. However, Li Tai was much fatter than Sun Zifan before, so he still looked a little fat now. However, it was much better than his previous round appearance. Sun Zifan, I say, let's think about how we're going to spend tomorrow. This afternoon, because we helped the Ministry of Civil Affairs settle the score, we escaped the calamity. However, we can't escape the calamity forever. I heard that this afternoon, the people of Class 2 were badly scolded by Lu Guogong. Now, they're all lying on the sports field. Wang Meng, who was sitting at the next table, glanced at Sun Zifan, who was in a happy mood, and said mercilessly, "That's true." When Sun Zifan heard this, he immediately lost his spirit like a frosted eggplant. He muttered in a melancholy mood. When we left in the afternoon, I felt that Lu Guogong was not in a good mood. We are bound to be unlucky tomorrow. I say, Chonyo, can you ask your father not to come tomorrow? It's not so bad for the academy. We can have a break every 5 days, but the ministers only have 1 break every 10 days. It's not easy. Your father should be resting at home while the imperial court is on holiday. Yes, Zifan is right. Chonyo, you have to persuade Lu Guogong. Li Tai also voiced his agreement. Cheng Chumo said with a bitter face, "Do you think I don't want to persuade him? But my father is so stubborn. How can I persuade him?" In fact, Cheng Chumo knew that the reason why his father came to the academy as a military training instructor, other than helping Li Zishuan train the students, was to help him improve his state through military training. But now that more than half of the military training was over, his martial arts state was like Mount Tai, not moving at all. So, compared to Li Tai and the rest, he was the one who was under a lot of pressure. Yeah, that's right. This prince can still take leave. Today, Lu Guogong wanted to scold us, but because of the fleet from the imperial court, it was all for naught. Tomorrow, he will definitely reprimand us even harder. So tomorrow won't be easy. This prince must take leave tomorrow. Li Tai's mind suddenly flashed. He remembered that before school started, Li Zishuan had asked him for help twice. In return, he had given him 3 days of leave, but it had been so long that he had forgotten. Thinking of this, he immediately smiled proudly. Tomorrow you guys go and accept the training. I'm not feeling well, so I'll ask for a few days of leave from the Yamacho." Sun Zifen stared and carefully looked at Li Tai, then said in disbelief, "I say, Chinke, aren't you overthinking it? Looking at you now, who would believe that you're sick? Even if you're pretending to be sick, you should at least pretend. If you go to the Yamacho, you'll definitely be seen through by the Yamacho. It'll be a miracle if you can take leave." Chung Chumo echoed, "Zifen is right. Chinke, you should save it. Xiaoxian will definitely not allow you to take leave. He might even punish you for lying." Li Tai smiled mysteriously and said, Zifen, do you dare make a bet with me? Let's bet on whether the Yamacho will agree to my request for leave." Sun Zifen said without thinking, "Okay, let's bet. Chinke, just tell me how you want to bet and what you want to bet on." The world was ignorant. They always thought that they were the smartest, so there was gambling in the world. Chapter 800. Neither of us is sure of money, so gambling is boring. How about this? If I can really apply for leave from Yamacho tomorrow, you help me wash footwear for a month. If I can't apply for leave, then I'll help you wash footwear for a month. How about that? In the Yinhuang college cafeteria, Li Tai's eyes rolled twice, and then he looked at Sun Zifen and said, "The so-called footwear was the socks worn by ancient people, also known as footbags. It first appeared in the form of lace socks during the Xia, Shang, and Zhou dynasties. During the Qin, Han, Three Kingdoms, and Wei and Jin dynasties, the form of socks also changed a lot. The form was more and more similar to modern socks. Of course, until the Tang Dynasty, the word socks had not officially appeared. According to reliable records, the word socks first appeared in the ancient and modern Chinese annotations, written by Ma Huan of the Liang Dynasty. F***CK, Chinke you win, but who's afraid of who? I'll take this bet." Sun Zifen's appetite suddenly became bad when he thought about washing someone's smelly socks on a hot day. But how could he be afraid at such a critical time? Moreover, in his opinion, Li Zishuan would never agree to Li Tai's request for leave. So he looked at Li Tai and agreed decisively. "Okay, then it's a deal." The little fatty was suddenly happy. He thought to himself, there's really someone who isn't afraid of death. For the next month, I won't have to wash footwear at all. It's a deal. Sun Zifen also said loudly. He didn't think he would lose. "Husband, what are you busy with? After receiving the imperial edict in the afternoon, you've been hiding in the house and didn't come out for dinner. Mother even asked about you." At night, Yinshan Villa, Han Yushi walked into the bedroom on the third floor with a wooden food box in her left hand and a candle in her right hand. She put the food box next to Li Zishuan, who was hunched over the desk, and then turned to change the candle on the candlestick that was about to burn out. She asked Li Zishuan softly while changing the candle, "Oh, nothing. Your husband is still pondering over some things." If it were someone else who asked this question at this time, Li Zishuan, who was in deep thought, might not pay attention to them at all. However, Han Yushi was different. He had always doted on his wife very much. It was not an exaggeration to call him a wife-doting maniac. He lowered his head and drew something while answering Yushi's question. "What are you thinking about?" After changing the candles, Han Yushi curiously walked behind Li Zishuan. She glanced at the white paper in front of him that was filled with various symbols and asked, "Hey, wife, come and sit." Li Zishuan stopped writing when he heard this. He laughed and pulled Han Yushi into his arms. Then he explained, "I'm not sure. Wife, you also know that we bought over 1 million caddies of rubber latex from the Wang family this time. Your husband is thinking of a way to refine the latex. Otherwise, wouldn't the nearly 10,000 strings of coins be wasted?" Han Yushi glanced at Li Zishuan. She did not believe that her husband worked so hard just to not spend a few thousand strings of coins in vain. "By the way, husband, I still don't know the use of this rubber that looks like soy milk." The ancients also drank soy milk. The inventor of soy milk was Luan, the king of Huainan in the Western Han Dynasty. It was said that Luan was a filial son. When his mother was ill, Luan would make soy milk with soaked soybeans every day for his mother to drink. Mother Lu's illness quickly recovered. Since then, soy milk gradually became popular among the people. Hey, this rubber has too many uses. Let me tell you, although this rubber latex looks like soy milk, once it is refined, it will become something soft and elastic. The simplest use is to use it on wheels. The outer wheels made of rubber are much faster than wooden ones. Of course, this is only the simplest use. Your husband still has some complicated tools that must use rubber. Oh, by the way, rubber can also be used to make a very interesting thing. In the future, your husband may be able to discuss it with my wife. Lisa Schwann was still serious when he said the first few words, but in the end his tone suddenly became extremely wretched, and his hands began to become dishonest. He was grabbing at a certain part of Han Yushi's body. Ah, husband, you can slowly think about it. I won't disturb you anymore. The weather was hot now, and Han Yushi was wearing thin clothes. How could she withstand such teasing? She was so scared that she quickly stood up and retreated far away in an instant. She wasn't the least bit interested in the interesting thing that Lisa Schwann had mentioned. Although they had been married for so long and had experienced a lot of things in bed, Han Yushi still couldn't help but be shy when it came to it. Moreover, she didn't want Lisa Schwann to be obsessed with these things and neglect the proper business. Therefore, except for the first few days after they got married, she had always been extremely restrained in this aspect. Lisa Schwann touched his nose gloomily when he grabbed nothing. However, the fragrance of Han Yushi's body inevitably came from his hand, which made his heart restless again. But when he saw his wife retreating far away as if she was guarding against a pervert, walking to the bedside and beginning to embroider, he knew that now was not the time to do that kind of thing. Thus, he dispelled the evil thoughts and began to work honestly. After about an hour, Lisa Schwann finally stopped writing. He raised his head and stretched lazily. He looked at the food box that Han Yushi had just brought over. He shook his head and did not touch the food. In front of a beautiful woman, who was a feast for the eyes, why would he need any food? This guy chuckled, then rubbed his hands and walked toward Han Yushi, who was sitting by the bed and doing needlework. Husband, don't. Let me finish the rest of the embroidery first. Someone's bare hug completely disrupted the rhythm of the needlework in Han Yushi's hands. Han Yushi exclaimed and quickly said, this was not an excuse on purpose, but this embroidery really only had a little work left. Oh, okay. Wife, you do it. I'll hug you and not move. It won't affect you. Lisa Schwann responded in a muffled voice. Then, he wrapped his arms around Han Yushi's waist from behind and buried his head in her neck. Feeling the hot breath on her neck, Han Yushi suddenly blushed. She thought to herself, how can I do it with peace of mind when you are like this? After sighing helplessly, Han Yushi forced herself to calm down and began to do the unfinished work. Wife, this won't do. The light at night is too dim. Needlework hurts the eyes. Let's not do it. Let's sleep. After a while, Lisa Schwann felt that it was still difficult to do embroidery with a weak candlelight in the room, so he spoke up. At the same time, he wondered if he should find a way to install electric lights in the courtyard. Otherwise, it would be inconvenient. Chapter 801. Once a person's dream was achieved, it was easy to become lazy, and this laziness would continue until a new goal appeared. Lisa Schwann was like this. When he first came to this dynasty, he dreamed of becoming a marquis and then waiting for death to come. Life was short, and he still had a wealthy family and a beautiful wife. He had to enjoy it as soon as possible. So the next day, Lisa Schwann slept very late and didn't wake up. Of course, part of the reason was because he had slept rather late last night. In any case, his habit of getting up early for the past half a month was suddenly interrupted. However, this made someone suffer. Bang, bang, bang. Bang, bang, bang. Yanwang College, Guanghua Building, 10th floor of the Central Twin Towers. Li Tai did not go to the cafeteria after finishing his morning run, as usual. Instead, he went straight to Lisa Schwann's office and banged on the door with all his might. However, there was still no movement after banging on it for more than 10 times. Li Tai's heart skipped a beat, and he had a bad feeling. Qin, are you looking for Xiao Xian? At this moment, someone suddenly walked out from the staircase. It was Yin shouting, who had just come to work and heard the commotion. Li Tai was quite familiar with Yin shouting in the past. He quickly said, "That's right, brother shouting. Do you know where Xiao Xian, Yamacho is?" In the past, Xiao Xian would have already arrived at this time. However, you still haven't opened the door after banging on it for so long. This means that he didn't come today. Yin shouting thought for a moment and replied. Li Tai panicked when he heard this. Then, brother shouting, "Do you know where Yamacho is now?" Yin shouting said helplessly, "How would I know? Chinke, if you have something urgent to look for him, you can ask Mo Zhong. He should know." As soon as Yin shouting finished speaking, Li Tai disappeared in an instant. He was so fast that even Yin shouting was a little surprised. Seems like this military training is still useful. Yin shouting muttered softly as he looked at Li Tai's back, which was obviously much thinner than before, and his vigorous steps. Mo Zhong, where's Yamacho? Li Tai ran to the gate of the academy, found Mo Zhong, and asked. When Mo Zhong saw that the person asking the question was Li Tai, he hurriedly replied, "Yamacho hasn't come today. He must have something to do, or he's still at home." Li Tai widened his eyes. How could he do that? If he couldn't get leave soon, he would have to continue the military training with Sun Zifen and the others. Then, he would lose the bet. According to the agreement, he had to wash Sun Zifen's footwear for a month. Wasn't this asking for his old life? Hey, Your Highness, what are you trying to do? You cannot go out. This is the Academy's rule. Li Tai was anxious and wanted to go out to find Li Zishuan. Mo Zhong would not let him go and quickly stopped him. Out of the way. I really have something urgent to talk to Yamacho about. Fortunately, this was the Academy. If someone dared to stop him in any other place, Li Tai would definitely be angry. Even so, the little fatty's tone was impatient. Mo Zhong knew that this young master in front of him was not an easy person to deal with. He was so anxious that he was sweating profusely. He was still thinking of a countermeasure. When he saw that Li Tai was about to explode, he hurriedly said, "How about this? Your Highness, please calm down first. I will help you find Yamacho. You cannot go out. The Academy's rules cannot be broken. When I find Yamacho, you can talk to him face to face if you have something to say." Li Tai thought about it and felt that it was feasible. He waved his hand impatiently and said, Okay. Go and come back quickly. I will wait here." After saying that, Li Tai did not even go to the cafeteria. He went straight to the guard booth at the Academy's entrance and sat in Mo Zhong's seat. Mo Yun was shocked and did not dare to sit with Li Tai. He quickly came out to stand guard. Mo Zhong, on the other hand, ran in the direction of the Cloud Mountain Resort. About half an hour later, the little fatty was anxiously waiting because there was only a little more than 15 minutes left before the morning military training. At this time, he finally saw Mo Zhong and Li Zishuan coming back. "Chinke, I heard that you have something urgent to talk to me about. What is it? Do you have to say it now?" Li Zishuan looked at Li Tai and asked expressionlessly. In fact, he was very unhappy. No one would be in a good mood if they were woken up by a shout downstairs while holding their wife in their dreams. After waking up, he heard Mo Zhong say that Li Tai had something urgent to talk to him about. Li Zishuan snorted and thought, what kind of business could this little fatty have? So he came over very reluctantly. "Yamacho, let's talk as we walk." Li Tai quickly walked out of the guard booth and said. The two walked on the cement road of the academy. Li Tai continued, "Yamacho, I want to ask for a 3-day leave from you. You promised me that you would allow me to take a 3-day leave during the military training period, plus the 2 days of rest during the weekend. I could take a total of 5 days off. Damn, this little fatty woke me up early in the morning just to ask for a leave." Li Zishuan's face suddenly looked like he'd been hit by a dog. After thinking about it, he decided to tease this little fatty. What did I promise you? I didn't, don't talk nonsense." Li Zishuan pretended to be surprised and then threw a set of 3 consecutive denials at Li Tai. Li Tai was waiting for Li Zishuan to agree so that he could announce the victory of the bet to Sun Zifen. In the end, he was stunned by Li Zishuan's 3 consecutive denials. But after being stunned, he panicked. He immediately became anxious when he thought of the consequences of losing the bet. Hey, Xiaoxian, as a Yamacho of Yanhuang College, you can't go back on your words. You allowed me to take a 3-day leave when I helped compile the geography textbook and asked my father to give you a plaque for the academy. Did you forget? You can't go back on your words. Li Zixuan found it funny when he saw Li Tai so anxious that his face was flushed red, looking like he was about to fight to the death with someone. However, he pretended to be enlightened. Oh, I remember now. It seems like there was such a thing. But when Li Tai heard that Li Zixuan remembered, he immediately let out a sigh of relief. However, when he heard the damn turn of events, his heart immediately jumped to his throat. But what? You can take a leave if you want, but not today. Lu Wugong wanted to come over yesterday to give you extra training, but because of the fleet, he made a wasted trip. So, the students of Class 1 can't be absent today. Although Li Zixuan didn't know about the bet, he could guess that Li Tai wanted to take a leave at this critical moment to avoid being tortured by Demon King Chung, so he immediately refused. Li Tai was dumbfounded when he heard this. He was King done for. Chapter 802. Yamacho, when you promised me 3 days of leave, you didn't say when I could ask for leave and when I couldn't. Now there are so many additional conditions. You're going back on your word. Li Tai said unwillingly on the cement road in the academy. Li Zixuan spread his hands and pretended to be helpless. Qingke, when I made the promise to you, how could I have expected this situation? Anyway, no means no. Even if I agree, Lu Guogong won't agree. If you really want to ask for leave, then delay it for a few days. I can't delay it. I have to ask for leave today. Li Tai couldn't accept the suggestion of delaying it for a few days. He shook his head like a rattle drum. Yamacho, is there really no room for negotiation? No. Qingke, do you have to go this far? Lu Guogong will at most increase your training load by 40%. Look at how scared you are. It's not like you haven't experienced it before. Seeing Li Tai's unrelenting attitude, Li Zixuan glanced at the little fatty and said with a strange expression. At the same time, a trace of suspicion arose in his heart. Logically speaking, Li Tai wouldn't force himself to do it, even though he knew it was impossible. Li Tai wanted to say that if he didn't ask for leave today, he would have to wash Sun Zifen's feet for a month. However, he swallowed the words back down because he felt that if Li Zixuan knew the truth, then it would be even more impossible for him to ask for leave. After interacting with Li Zixuan for so long, he knew that Li Zixuan liked to trick him the most. I'm not feeling well today. I have to ask for leave. After hemming and hawing for a long time, Li Tai finally made up an excuse. However, he forgot that this excuse was the worst excuse for Li Zixuan. Li Zixuan narrowed his eyes and looked Li Tai up and down. Li Tai suddenly felt uncomfortable being looked at. Li Zixuan saw this and knew that things weren't as simple as he thought. Qingke, you're not feeling well? Where are you? It just so happens that I know a little about medicine. Come, let me take your pulse. To be honest, how could this guy know how to take a pulse? He was just bluffing. However, Li Tai was really bluffed. After all, Li Zixuan's medical skills were well known. No, Qingke, are you hiding something from me? Li Zixuan's eyes were fixed on Li Tai as he indifferently said, I'm not. Yamacho, don't talk nonsense. Li Tai felt guilty under Li Zixuan's penetrating gaze. In a moment of desperation, the little fatty actually used Li Zixuan's 3 consecutive denials and threw them back at Li Zixuan. Li Zixuan was speechless when he heard this. Speaking of the 3 consecutive denials, the I'm not, don't talk nonsense emoji from his previous life subconsciously appeared in his mind. It was really funny. At first, he wanted to tease the little fatty, but he didn't expect that he would be the one being teased in the end. Thinking of this, he suddenly became angry out of humiliation. All right, don't talk nonsense with me. There's no room for discussion. It's almost time. Why aren't you going to military training? If you're late, you'll be punished again. Li Tai looked at Li Zixuan with a tragic expression. Suddenly, he had an idea and said, Can't you make an exception? I can use those 3 days of leave in exchange for today's day. Is that okay? Li Zixuan hesitated when the little fatty said this. But why was this kid willing to put in so much effort? Was there something fishy about this? Then tell me first, are you hiding something from me? Otherwise, there's no need to talk about any conditions. Li Tai didn't know what to do in the face of this blatant threat. He thought about it and told him about his bet with Sun Zifen. It's like this, Yamacho. If you don't agree to my request for leave, I'll have to wash that kid's feet for a month. When Li Zixuan heard this, 10,000 alpacas ran through his heart. These two little bastards really knew how to play. One was the son of the emperor, and the other was the son of the top scholar. No matter who lost the bet, they would have to wash each other's smelly socks. If this spread out, Li Er and Sun Fujiao's old faces would not look good. However, even though Sun Fujiao was unhappy, she didn't dare to blame Li Tai and Li Er. She only pulled the hatred on his son Zifen. In this way, that little idiot would be in trouble. I say, did you and Sun Zifen eat too much and have nothing to do? So you're messing around every day? Was it because I didn't let you go to military training yesterday afternoon that caused you to be so energetic and have the leisure to gamble? Li Zixuan reprimanded with a straight face. Li Tai looked at the time. Then he ignored Li Zixuan's reprimand and said anxiously, Yes, Yamacho, we know that we were wrong. The problem now is that you have to quickly agree to my request for leave. Didn't you just say that as long as I tell you the truth, you'll allow me to take leave? Li Zixuan rolled his eyes and said unhappily, When did I say that? I only said that if you don't tell me the truth, then there's nothing to talk about. This was really a trap in the city. Li Tai didn't pay attention and fell into the trap. Little fatty said anxiously, Then what do you mean? Do you agree or not? Li Zixuan sighed and said unhurriedly, After hearing what Qin Ke said, I can't agree even more. Because if I agree, wouldn't it be unfair to Sun Zifen? If this was in a gambling house, your actions would be considered cheating. You were the one who wanted me to tell you the truth, but after I told you, you said this. I think you did it on purpose. Li Tai breathed heavily, obviously flustered and exasperated. At this time, he didn't care about his tone of voice. Li Zixuan didn't get angry because of this. He thought for a while and said, Qin Ke, I'm not targeting you on purpose. What I said is the truth. Now, there are only two paths in front of you. 1. Lose the bet and obediently go to military training. You'll also obediently wash Sun Zifen's socks. Oh no, wash his feet. 2. I can agree to your request for leave today. In addition to exchanging 3 days of leave for 1 day today, you have to carry 20 buckets of water on Saturday. You're not allowed to spend money to hire people or ask your subordinates to help. You have to carry these 20 buckets of water to the student dormitory's water tower. If you don't do this, Sun Zifen will definitely feel bad. Time is of the essence. Which path do you prefer? F*CK. I like your grandpa. I don't like any of the paths. You're F*King cheating me. Li Tai's face was full of grief and indignation. If he won, he really wanted to fight Li Zixuan to the death. How could he bully people like this? I choose the second path. Seeing that the students who had finished breakfast were walking to the field, Li Tai gritted his teeth and said, Chapter 803. Qin Ke, how was it? Did Yamacho allow you to take a leave of absence? On the sports field of Yanhuang College, in Class 1's camp, Sun Zifen was a little guilty at first, but after waiting for Li Tai for a long time and not seeing him, he suddenly felt that this bet was as stable as a dog. At this moment, seeing Li Tai's drooping face, this guy secretly thought that he had a chance. He immediately went forward and pretended to be concerned, but anyone could see the smugness in his eyes. In fact, this amusing idiot's thinking was wrong. The reason why Li Tai's drooping face and looking unhappy was entirely because he had paid an extremely painful price to win this bet. Not only did he sacrifice 2 days of vacation that originally belonged to him, but he also had to carry 20 buckets of water. This really cost the little fatty his life. 20 buckets. Li Tai felt that he would have to carry them for a day. At this moment, when he heard Sun Zifen ask him, Li Tai raised his head and quickly restrained the dejected look on his face, revealing a victorious smile. Of course. You brat. Just wait to wash my feet for a month." At the end of his words, Li Tai's tone became a little vicious. In his opinion, the whole thing was caused by Sun Zifen. Li Zishuan deliberately asked for a sky-high price and deliberately cheated people. Although it was infuriating, Sun Zifen, the initiator, still had a reason to be very angry. How is that possible? Sun Zifen, who was originally winning, heard such an unexpected answer and suddenly felt a little incredulous. How could Yamacho allow you to take a leave of absence for no reason? Besides, if it's really like what you said, then why are you here now? Li Tai smiled and said condescendingly with the attitude of victor, "Oh, believe it or not, it's up to you. I just came here to tell you the result. Now that I'm done, I can start my vacation. See you later." Huh. With that said, he waved his hand. Under the stunned gazes of Sun Zifen, Cheng Chumo, Li Chengxian, Yuchi Baolin, and the others, he walked out of the sports field. His footsteps became faster and faster. He had no choice but to hurry. The little fatty was afraid that if he met Cheng Yaojin, he wouldn't be able to leave. Although this holiday was approved by Li Zishuan, if Cheng Yaojin really went crazy, he would not recognize anyone. Holy sh*t. He really left? Sun Zifen's arms were trembling. Firstly, he was shocked. Secondly, he was scared. Once he thought about washing Li Tai's smelly socks. How could he not be scared? At this moment, he felt like crying. Zifen, don't be sad. Anyway, it's only for a month. Cheng Chumo walked over, patted Sun Zifen's shoulder, and said gloatingly. This idiot had completely forgotten that he had the same attitude as Sun Zifen yesterday. It was just that Li Tai didn't choose to bet with him. Sun Zifen said angrily, "Get lost." Chonyo, you're really AB*TCH. Xiaoxian, where did Prince Wei go? I heard from the Crown Prince that he asked for leave from you. During the morning break, Cheng Yaojin found Li Zishuan, who was wandering around the sports field with his head lowered and thinking about something, and asked. Li Zishuan raised his head. He was already prepared for old Cheng's question. Yes, Qin Ke asked for leave from me. I heard that Her Majesty had something to do with him, so I asked him to go back first. This guy was now used to scamming people. He didn't even blink when he lied, but Cheng Yaojin really believed him. Oh, if that's the case, then go ahead and ask for leave. It's just that Prince Wei will regret it in the future if he doesn't have such a substantial training like today, right? Cheng Yaojin smacked his lips and sighed with regret. Faced with such a narcissistic Cheng Yaojin, Li Zishuan was speechless. Would he regret missing training? He was sure that to Li Tai, it was impossible for him to regret. He would never regret it in this lifetime. Gi Lane. It was close to noon, and the pedestrians on the road had all gone home for lunch. There was a tanned, lean, middle-aged man with an exquisite package in his hand. There seemed to be a stack of neatly stacked clothes in the package. After turning 2 alleys, the man finally entered a dilapidated small courtyard. Master, you're back. How was it? Those officials from a Ministry of Personnel didn't make things difficult for you, right? In the courtyard, a woman saw the man enter and quickly stood up to welcome him. As the middle-aged man walked into the house, he replied, No, I'm just going to make a report. I'm not here to ask for help. Why would they make things difficult for me? These 2 people were Meng Wenhao's parents. That's good. Meng Wenhao's mother sighed with relief. Then, she saw the bright yellow package placed on the table by Meng Wenhao's father. She was curious and asked, Master, is this the official uniform given to you by the imperial court? Meng Yuliang's mind didn't seem to be here. He faintly said, I just got it from the Ministry of Personnel. If you want to take a look, open it and take a look. Meng Yuliang's mother was a little excited. After all, she had lived for more than half of her life and had never seen or touched an official's uniform at close range. Therefore, she carefully opened the package and saw a dark cyan round collar official's uniform lying inside. She was about to pick it up and carefully examine it when Meng Yuliang suddenly stood up and only heard him say, Mother of my child, take a look first. I'm going to Changgui's house. Meng Wenhao's mother was stunned and said, "Master, it's already noon. Why are you going to Changwei's house?" Meng Yuliang stopped and let out a long sigh. Alas, Changwei went to sea with me, but now he didn't even bring back his body. I'm his brother. No matter what, I have to send him on his way. Mother, my child, go and give me 3 strings of money. Changwei's orphan and widow are quite pitiful. We have to show our sincerity. Meng Yuliang's mother immediately fell silent. Last night, under her persistent questioning, Meng Yuliang had told her the details of that terrifying night at sea. Until now, she still had a lingering fear in her heart. Moreover, she was also deeply rejoicing because many of the crew members who sacrificed themselves that night were from Guei Lane. Many of them were acquainted with her family. For her husband to be able to come back alive, it really was a miracle. Okay, master, wait a moment. I'll go and get you the money now. If it were in the past, Meng Wenhao's mother would never be willing to give away 3 strings of money. However, after experiencing this disaster, she understood that her family's safety was the greatest wealth. Moreover, to some extent, the sacrifice of those crew members also bought time for Meng Yuliang. She felt guilty and grateful in her heart. Chapter 804. Young Master, you're finally here. The Odd Interest Pavilion's new workshop in Plum Village finally welcomed its new owner today. Speaking of which, Li Zixuan really wasn't qualified to be the boss at all. From the beginning to the end, he hadn't asked about the expansion of the workshop at all. He had given full authority to Uncle Fu. Moreover, after the new factory was built, he hadn't come to visit at all. Therefore, when Uncle Fu saw Li Zixuan suddenly show up in the afternoon, he was both resentful and surprised. Li Zixuan looked slightly embarrassed. Obviously, he understood the meaning behind Faubert's words. Ahem, Faubert, long time no see. How have you been lately? Faubert looked at Li Zixuan and sighed helplessly. He knew that Li Zixuan had been busy recently, so he did not blame him too much. Moreover, Li Zixuan had always been very respectful to the elders in the workshop. Therefore, Faubert had always treated Li Zixuan as his junior. Young master, thank you for your concern. I'm still in good health and can help you manage the workshop for another 2 years. Faubert led Li Zixuan into the workshop and answered Li Zixuan's question at the same time. After hearing this, Li Zixuan frowned. He suddenly remembered that Faubert was getting on in years. Even if he was healthy, he could only work in the workshop for another 2 or 3 years. Who would take over at that time? Who would be the one to carry this burden? Successor. I have to look out for a successor for Faubert from now on. Li Zixuan sighed in his heart. Curious Pavilion's new workshop occupied a large area of about 100 mu, which was dozens of times larger than the workshop in Chang'an. According to the different functions and types of products produced, the workshop was divided into 10 areas. The production area had a large factory building similar to the ones in modern times. The office area had an office building, and the living area had a dormitory. It could be said that this new workshop covered all the elements and could be considered the most comprehensive workshop in the entire Tang Dynasty. Oh, by the way, young master, why did you ask people to bring in so many barrels of white pulp yesterday? Our warehouse is about to be filled with those things. Faubert had planned to take Li Zixuan to the office area to rest for a while. Halfway there, he suddenly remembered the thousands of barrels of white pulp that the Wang family's fleet had delivered yesterday. So he turned his head and asked. Li Zixuan smiled and said, "That stuff is called rubber, and it's very precious. So much rubber, it should be worth more than our workshop. Don't worry, didn't I come here today to teach you how to use it?" Faubert heard this and felt a little incredulous. He had heard from other sources that Li Zixuan had bought the rubber for a total of 8,000 strings of coins. Even if the rubber could bring 10 times the profit to the workshop, it was only 80,000 strings of coins. How could it be more valuable than the entire workshop? That's great. This old man wants to see what this stuff that looks like soy milk can be used for. Seeing how confident Li Zixuan was, Faubert still wanted to take a look even though he didn't believe it from the bottom of his heart. Hee hee. Then let's go to the workshop next door. Faubert, get someone to bring a barrel of rubber over. Oh, and bring a big pot of white vinegar as well. Lisa Schwan pointed to the large factory building next to them and said to Faubert, okay. Although Faubert was puzzled as to why Lisa Schwan wanted vinegar, it wasn't convenient for him to ask. Thus, he ordered his subordinates to do as they were told. After a while, all the items were ready. Faubert even brought a few old craftsmen from the workshop to observe from the side. Song Xiaoxi, Pang Feiji, pour this barrel of rubber into the stone trough. Lisa Schwan pointed to the rectangular stone trough in front of him and ordered Song Xiaoxi and Pang Feiji behind him. This stone trough was originally used for annealing when the blacksmith was forging. However, due to the urgency of the situation, Lisa Schwan couldn't find a more suitable container. Yes, young master, Song Xiaoxi responded and quickly lifted the barrel full of rubber with Pang Feiji. The white rubber latex immediately poured into the trough. This stuff looked as thin as soy milk. It was no wonder that Faubert couldn't think of a use for it. Pour the whole pot of vinegar in. Lisa Schwan weighed the pot of white vinegar in his hand and ordered. A very important process for the extraction of rubber latex was the solidification process. In the modern rubber latex solidification process, the most commonly used solidifying agents were formic acid and acetic acid. Formic acid and acetic acid could increase the hydrogen ion content in the latex, thus lowering the pH value of the latex, compressing the electric double layer, and thinning the hydration film. When it reached the isoelectric point of the protein, the electromotive potential would be zero, and there would be no repulsion between the rubber particles. They would gather together and solidify into a block. In the 21st century, most foreign countries used formic acid as the solidifying agent, while domestic companies mainly used acetic acid as the solidifying agent. Depending on the specific acid used, the properties of the rubber would be different. Lisa Schwan had learned all of this from his rich classmate's family's factory in his previous life. Otherwise, how could he have known all of this? In the Tang Dynasty, formic acid definitely didn't exist, but acetic acid did. This was because the so-called acetic acid had a very common name, and that was acetic acid. Vinegar contained a large amount of acetic acid. This was all thanks to the wisdom of our ancestors who invented vinegar. Otherwise, Lisa Schwan would still be making vinegar. The two of you, go get 2 hoe handles and wash them with hot water. Then, bring them over and stir them vigorously. Lisa Schwan quickly ordered. Song Xiaoxi and Pang Feiji obeyed and left. After a while, the two of them each carried a smooth hoe handle and walked in. Under Lisa Schwan's demonstration, they began to use the sticks to stir in the stone trough. Hey, master. It's solidified. It was like soy milk just now, but now it's turned into tofu. After stirring for about half an hour, Pang Feiji suddenly shouted in surprise. It's really turned into tofu. Come and see. Song Xiaoxi was also very excited. Without needing him to say anything, Faubert and the rest of the craftsmen had already rushed over. Seeing that the rubberized latex had turned into tofu, Faubert could not help but click his tongue in wonder. Hey, this is really strange. Isn't it just pouring a pot of vinegar into it? How did all the rubber solidify? Yeah, this is too strange. It's like a magic trick. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, it would be really hard to believe. The rest of the craftsmen were also very shocked. They had never learned about chemical reactions, so they could only categorize it as a magic trick. Chapter 805. Song Xiaoxi, Pang Feiji, take out the solidified rubber. Lisa Schwan saw everyone's reaction, but he did not say anything. Everything was within his expectations. Take it out? Master, how do we take it out? Pang Feiji looked at the tofu in the stone trough and asked. To him, the solidified rubber latex was as fragile as tofu. Wash your hands and take it with your bare hands. Lisa Schwan was speechless. After the rubber latex solidified, although it looked like tofu, it was actually much tougher than tofu. This was because the solidified rubber was sticky. Instead of saying that it was like tofu, it was more like a dough with a certain degree of toughness. Song Xiaoxi and Pang Feiji moved the rubber from the stone trough into the buckets that they had prepared beforehand. Both of you, follow me with the rubber. Li Zixuan looked at the rubber that was about to take shape. He was very happy. Although he knew the theory behind the solidification of rubber, it was only on a theoretical level. It was his first time doing it in practice. After a while, under Falbert's lead, everyone arrived at the papermaking workshop area. Falbert, where is the papermaking machine? It was difficult to find something in such a big papermaking factory. Li Zixuan asked Falbert directly. Papermaking machine? Falbert was even more confused. What did the extraction of rubber have to do with the papermaking machine? Yes, it's the new papermaking machine that we made before. Li Zixuan nodded. Seeing that Li Zixuan was not in the mood to explain, Falbert could only bring him to a big factory. Master, the papermaking machine is here. Needless to say, Li Zixuan also saw it. He said to Song Xiaoxi behind him, Xiaoxi, you two pour the rubber in. At this moment, the two of them believed Li Zixuan's words without a doubt. They poured the rubber into the papermaking machine's pulp inlet. Li Zixuan stepped forward and raised the roller of the papermaking machine slightly. Then, he asked the servant next to him to pull the donkey and start the papermaking machine. The papermaking machine's paper outlet was a thin, white film-like object that was slightly thicker than paper. This was the plasticity of rubber. It could be rolled flat like dough, and during the rolling process, most of the water in the rubber could be squeezed out. Xiaoxi, find someone to cut these rubber pieces into sections. Then, just like drying paper, put them outside to dry. At this point, the process had basically come to an end. In the modern rubber production and refining process, it was generally only at this step before it could be compressed and packaged and sold all over the world. Yes, boss. After staying in the workshop for so long, Song Xiaoxi was very familiar with the papermaking process. He responded and called for the servant next to him to cut the rubber. Master, that's it, but I still can't see the use of this rubber. Seeing this, Uncle Fu asked a question in his heart. Li Zixuan smiled and replied, It's not over yet. This is only the first step. Through the steps, just now, Falbert, you must have seen that the rubber is very plastic. Its most important characteristic is that it can change its shape at will. After the rubber is completely dried, we can proceed to the second step, molding. By then, Falbert, you will know the magical use of this rubber. Falbert nodded thoughtfully. Li Zixuan did not disturb him. He left with Pang Feiji and looked around the new workshop. As they were about to go back, they met two people. They were two girls. Yamacho, you're here? Sir. Different names represented different identities of the owners of the voices. They were Mo Ling Wei and Little Fishy. Ink Girl, Little Fishy, why are the two of you together? Looking at the two beauties, one big and one small, Li Zixuan did not feel any joy. Instead, he felt some lingering fear. Beauties were beautiful, but beauties with the characteristics of witches were not very good. Yamacho, your memory is really bad. Didn't little Ningzi tell you that? I've been polishing the glass to make an astronomical telescope. Mo Lingwei rolled her eyes and said sarcastically, Oh, Li Zixuan suddenly realized that Yin Shaoning had indeed told him. But now the two girls were obviously gossiping and chatting under a big tree. They did not look like they were doing research at all. Ink Girl, how's the progress on your side? Not very good. Yamacho, your craftsmen are not good at all. It's not as good as me polishing it myself. Mo Lingwei pouted and said with some dissatisfaction. Fine, she was getting someone to work for her for free, and she was being despised. Li Zixuan choked and said helplessly, Okay, then you polish it yourself? I'll wait for your good news at the academy. Then, he looked at Li Yu and asked, Little Fishy, what about you? Little Fishy was not as presumptuous as Mo Lingwei. Although she had a demonic nature in her bones, she only released it to outsiders. In front of Li Zixuan, she had always been more obedient. Perhaps it was because Li Zixuan had given her the capital to settle down in Chong and City, or perhaps it was because Li Zixuan was Ming Wenhao's mentor. Hearing Li Zixuan's question, the little girl smiled sweetly and then replied, Sir, it's Steward Ma who wants to move the editorial department of the Tang Daily here. He has been busy preparing lessons in the academy recently, so he sent me here to inspect it first. A few days ago, I met Sister Wire here. She told me the principle of the telescope. I feel that what she and Brother Shouting are doing now is very meaningful. After chatting for a while, I feel that we hit it off quite well, so we became good sisters. Oh, Lisa Schwan whispered in his heart. Of course, the witch and the witch hit it off. He actually knew about Ma Zhou's intention to move the editorial department to the new workshop, and he also agreed. Firstly, the office environment here would definitely be better. Secondly, it was close to the academy, so it would be convenient for Ma Zhou to take care of the work on both sides at the same time. By the way, sir, I want to write in detail what Sister Wire is doing now in the newspaper. Although it looks boring, if it is displayed in the newspaper, it can promote Sir's work and attract more people to join it. Li Zishuan heard this and thought in his heart, isn't this similar to modern academic papers? To be honest, he really wanted to set up a top academic journal similar to the Nature and Science in his previous life to gather the best academic results of mankind. But was this really appropriate? Once he did this, it would easily cause technology leakage. This was what Li Zishuan was very unwilling to see. The modern scientific knowledge he brought could only take root and sprout in the Tang Empire. It could never be spread to foreign countries and become a weapon for foreign countries to deal with the Han people. Chapter 806. Little Yua, if you really want to write about this in the newspaper, you can't write about the principles of the telescope that Ink Girl just explained to you. You can only write about it roughly. After you finish writing, I have to look through it. You can only publish it after I give my approval. Do you understand? In the workshop, Li Zishuan said to Li Yu with a serious face. In the modern era, there were many academic journals in every country. There were all kinds of academic papers in them. They showed the latest discoveries in various fields to the researchers. But there was one thing that had to be admitted. If these academic papers were published, it would be easy for others to imitate your latest discoveries. However, in the modern era, there were patent protection laws. Even if others learned your technology, they could not steal it. They had to pay patent fees to you. For example, in the 21st century in China, every mobile phone manufacturer had to pay patent fees of hundreds of billions to the United States because of 3G or 4G communication agreements. But this was the Tang Dynasty. In this era, 70% to 80% of the countries had not developed their knowledge. Who are you going to talk to about intellectual property protection? Isn't this playing the lute to a cow? Even if Tang Dynasty passed the patent law, the rest of the world would not recognize it. If he published academic journals now, the ambassadors of the other countries might bring the advanced scientific knowledge back to their countries. This was something that Li Zishuan could not tolerate. If patent laws were to be passed around the world, it would have to be in an era of peace. Right now, the only thing Li Zishuan could do was to monopolize the academic field. When the Great Tang became extremely powerful, only then would he consider the issue of academic journals and intellectual property rights. Yamacha, why is that? Although Li Yu was smart, she did not think of all these. So, she raised her head and asked. Li Zishuan looked at the little girl and did not explain further. He only said calmly, I just want Tang Dynasty to have fewer strong enemies. In this world, other than stealing money, books, and tombs, there is another type of thief that specializes in stealing knowledge. Little Yuer, just do as I say. After saying that, he flicked his sleeves and left the workshop, leaving the two little girls in deep thought. Chinke, why are you still here? You haven't returned to the residence? Or did he come here again after returning to the residence? In the evening, with the sound of gongs and drums, the students of Yanhuang College were finally dismissed from school. At the same time, they also ushered in the long-awaited weekend holiday. Sun Zifen, who had been drilled by Cheng Yaojin for an entire day, returned to the dormitory, exhausted. He wanted to change his clothes before going home, but he didn't expect to see Li Tai in the dormitory. He immediately exclaimed. Li Tai was half lying on the bed with his head resting on his arm. He was facing the sky. Oh no, facing the bedboard above him, and replied, "I'm sorry. I just came back from the prince's mansion an hour ago. I brought back the clothes that I wanted to change into, but as for the underwear, I left them here. I'm just waiting for you to come over and help me wash them." Huh. As soon as he finished speaking, there was a burst of laughter in the dorm. Huh. Ziffin, you can be considered to have a good time now. Qingqiue's underwear. TSK, no, I have to go quickly. Wait for me to leave before you wash them. Qingqiumo had a gloating expression on his face. He quickly took off his camouflage uniform and changed his clothes, wanting to escape as soon as possible. Although Li Chengxian and the others weren't as cheap as Qingqiumo, they also sped up their movements. Sun Ziffin's face suddenly turned green and white. "Qingke, can we change the conditions?" After hesitating for a long time, Sun Ziffin looked at Li Tai and said with a sad face, "No, don't you know that if you agree to a bet, you have to accept defeat?" "Ziffin, don't tell me you want to go back on your word." Li Tai replied without thinking. In order to win this bet, he had paid a painful price. At the end of the day, how could he let Sun Ziffin go? Damn, Qingke, we don't have to be so ruthless, right? During the military training, I helped you many times, didn't I? You should at least consider our old friendship. Sun Ziffin said unwillingly. You can consider our old friendship, but you can't consider it on this matter. Ziffin, just give up and help me wash my underwear. Li Tai said resolutely. Is there really no room for compromise? There really isn't. Ziffin, quickly help me wash today's underwear. Li Tai said with a satisfied face as he lay on the bed with his legs crossed. This situation was exactly the same as when he pleaded with Li Zishuan in the morning. However, the person pleading was Sun Ziffin, and the person being begged was himself. Li Tai felt an inexplicable sense of pleasure in his heart. However, when he thought of carrying 20 buckets of water tomorrow, a thick haze appeared in his heart. Damn, you win. So be it. I'm a man of my word. Once I've said it, I'll keep my word. Sun Ziffin roared in grief and indignation. Then, he bent down to pick up Li Tai's underwear from under the bed. Suddenly, a stinky smell hit him in the face. Oh my God, Qingke, with your underwear in our dormitory, the 5 poisons will be avoided, demons and devils will bow their heads, and we will still be alive, unparalleled in the world. Fortunately, I brought back soap operas from home last time. Sun Ziffin quickly covered his nose, took 3 steps back, and said in a muffled voice, "This guy was really funny." He actually said the stinky socks in such a literary way. The rest of the people in the dormitory who were originally disgusted by Li Tai's expired socks burst into laughter when they heard Sun Ziffin's words. Huh, then Ziffin, you don't have to wash them. In the future, hang Qingqiue's underwear at the dormitory door. It can also prevent mosquitoes. Qingqiumo laughed loudly. If that's really the case, won't we be unable to enter the dormitory in the future? Yuchi Baolin took Qingqiumo's words seriously and said with a face full of horror. Li Tai immediately blushed and said, "Why are you talking so much nonsense? Ziffin, go wash them quickly. Big brother, Chonyo, Baolin, Huayu, aren't you guys going home?" Huh, I'm going back now. I hope you two have fun, Qingqiumo waved his hand and laughed vulgarly. Then, he dragged Qin Huayu and Yuchi Baolin out. Qingke, aren't you going back to Chang'an today? Li Chengxian, who was left behind, stood by Li Tai's bed and asked. I'm not going back. Big brother, you go first. Li Tai stood up and answered. He still had to fetch water tomorrow. Wouldn't it be a waste of energy to run back and forth? All right then, you rest well. I'll go first. Li Chengxian didn't think too much. He nodded and left. Chapter 807. Here, Qingke, your footwear is done. After they left, Li Tai lay on the bed alone, humming an unknown tune and shaking his legs, as happy as a lord. After a quarter of an hour, Sun Ziffin came out of the bathroom with a pair of white footwear in his hands. He handed the footwear to Li Tai and said in a muffled voice, "Oh, it's done so quickly." Li Tai rolled like a carp and sat up. If it was in the past, with the little fatty's super fat body, he definitely wouldn't be able to do this. And not bad, not bad. It's quite clean. Ziffin, help me dry the footwear again. Li Tai went forward and carefully looked at the footwear in Sun Ziffin's hands, then shamelessly asked for a yard after getting an inch. Get lost. Chinke, don't go too far. We didn't agree to dry the clothes in the beginning. If you want to dry them yourself. I'm going out to eat. Sun Ziffin wasn't a punching bag that was easy to bully, so he immediately said angrily. Li Tai sighed helplessly. He could only get up and dry the footwear on the clothes rack in the bathroom. Cough, cough. This clothes rack wasn't the modern clothes rack invented by Li Zishuan when he was designing Yanhuan College. How could he have so much free time to think about everything? This clothes rack was a local product of the Tang Dynasty. In fact, clothes racks were a type of furniture that existed even earlier than tables, chairs, and beds. There were already clothes racks as early as the Zhou Dynasty. During the Zhou Dynasty, etiquette was implemented. The aristocrats attached great importance to clothes. In order to meet this need, racks specially used to hang clothes appeared early on. Each dynasty had different forms of clothes racks, and their names were also different. During the spring and autumn period, a horizontal wooden pole used to hang clothes was called chong, also known as mushur. Hey, Ziffin, you still have the appetite to eat? Hee hee. Li Tai was drying the footwear in the bathroom while turning his head to look at Sun Ziffin with a smirk. This sentence was quite self-deprecating, but there were only the two of them in the dorm. Anyway, Li Tai didn't care at all. Damn, Chinke, your skin is getting thicker and thicker. You have the nerve to say this kind of thing? Sun Ziffin scolded with a look of disdain, then replied, I was lectured by Lu Guogong today. If I don't eat, I'll starve to death. I'd rather die of disgust than starve. Li Tai walked out from inside and said with a smile, Haha, if that's the case, I'll take you to eat. Let me tell you, the food at the small restaurant of the Hu family at the foot of the mountain is delicious. Let's go there and try it. My treat. Sun Ziffin looked at Li Tai suspiciously and curled his lips. Han family manner? What kind of delicious restaurant could there be? Chinke, don't tell me you're trying to save money and trick me into going there. Li Tai sneered. Nonsense. Save money. Do you think I, Li Tai, am such a stingy person? It's up to you. Go or not. Fatty wasn't lying this time. Ever since Yanhuan College started, more and more people came here. Some came to visit their children, some came to inspect the environment of the college, and some came purely because of its reputation. Many small restaurants appeared in Plum Village and Han Village, and some even started to sell accommodation. Compared to the restaurants and inns in Chong, and the small restaurants and inns here could only be described as cheap. Hey, Chinke, I'll go. Wait, I'll go wash my hands first. Sun Ziffin finally realized that Li Tai wasn't lying. He quickly followed behind and shouted, Hee hee xiao xian. Early the next morning, Cheng Chumo actually appeared in front of Li Zishuan's house. Li Zishuan had already woken up and was eating breakfast with a bowl in his hand. Seeing this idiot smiling foolishly so early in the morning, he said in annoyance, What's wrong? Chonyo, did you get caught in the door early in the morning or something? Why are you smiling foolishly? Cheng Chumo almost vomited blood when he heard that. Han Yushi, who was sitting beside Li Zishuan, rolled her eyes at her husband and quickly got up to greet him. Brother Chonyo, have you eaten breakfast yet? Do you want to get someone to bring you a bowl and chopsticks? Hee hee. Of course. Sister-in-law is the best. Little Xian marrying you is truly a blessing that he cultivated in his previous life. Hearing Han Yushi's words, Cheng Chumo didn't hesitate for a moment. He immediately agreed and even flattered Han Yushi. After saying that, he sat opposite Li Zishuan without hesitation. Han Yushi smiled and asked someone to bring Cheng Chumo a bowl and chopsticks. Hee hee. Sister Lan long time no see. Do you want Brother Chonyo to bring you out to play today? Lan was sitting beside Cheng Chumo. He was a little embarrassed by the little girl's gaze that was obviously saying, Are you here to freeload? Hence, he deliberately changed the topic and joked. Oh, I don't want to. Brother Chonyo, your face is so dark now. It's too embarrassing to go out with you. Lan wants to go with you. He didn't expect Lan to be so obsessed with appearances. Her words instantly hurt Cheng Chumo. This military training had caused all the students in the academy to be tanned. He wasn't the only one. Did he have to be so affected by Lon? Sister Lon, it's not right of you to say that. Previously, Brother Chonyo brought you out to eat a lot of delicious food. What porridge is this? Why is the color so strange? Why does it smell so good? Chung Chimo bantered with Lon, for a while. At this moment, the servants brought him a bowl and chopsticks. The bowl was filled with a bowl of porridge that was slightly dark. There were also a few black things on top of it. He didn't know what they were. He sniffed hard and suddenly sighed. This is century egg and lean meat porridge, Li Zishuan replied as he stuffed a mouthful of porridge into his mouth. Century egg and lean meat porridge? Century egg? Is it the century egg that I saw the last time I came to your house? Chung Chimo felt that the name century egg was a little familiar. He thought seriously and suddenly shouted, "Yes, that's right. It's the century egg that you saw the last time. Speaking of which, you came at the right time. The century egg that I pickled last time is just ready to eat today. You came just in time." Li Zishuan glanced at him and said lightly, "This means that I'm lucky. Let me have a taste." Chung Chimo laughed proudly. Then he picked up the small bowl and stuffed the porridge into his mouth. It's hot, it's really hot. But this century egg and lean meat porridge is really delicious. I didn't know that porridge could be cooked this way. It's really an eye-opener for me. Chapter 808. Of course, there was porridge in the Tang Dynasty, but the porridge people ate at that time was still plain porridge. Li Zishuan added century eggs and lean meat into the porridge and made it into a salty porridge. It was really a new trick. Xiaoxian, your century egg and lean meat porridge is really tender and delicious. There's also an indescribable fragrance in it. I guess it's the smell of century eggs. TSK. Eating a bowl of century egg and lean meat porridge every morning makes me as happy as a god. It was the first time Ching Chumo had eaten such delicious salty porridge, and he ate 4 big bowls. After the meal, he rubbed his round belly, leaned back in the chair, and sighed with satisfaction. Li Zishuan rolled his eyes. Eating a bowl of century egg and lean meat porridge every morning makes me as happy as a god. Why does it sound more and more like smoking a cigarette after the deed makes me as happy as a god? Ahem, I'm misunderstood. But ugly ox, you just ate 4 bowls. Doesn't that mean you'll be happy for 4 days? Then you don't have to eat for the next 3 days. Li Zishuan joked with a smile. Chung Chumo choked on his words, but his skin had always been thicker than the city walls, and he was born to be a bully. How could he be defeated by a sentence? Xiaoxian, that's not how you calculate things. A bowl of century egg and lean meat porridge can make me happy for the whole day. I ate 4 bowls, so I'll be 4 times happier for the whole day. Chung Chumo laughed shamelessly. Li Zishuan was amused by this guy and said, "Ugly ox, why are you talking nonsense now? Since you like it so much, you can bring a basket of century eggs back later. See if Uncle Chung likes them." Now that the first batch of century eggs was made, he had to promote it as soon as possible. The best way was to promote it from the people in the circle and at the same time, do them a favor. That's good. Xiaoxian, you have to give me more later. My dad will definitely like it. Sigh, I wonder how long these century eggs can be stored. The weather is so hot now. Chung Chumo finally used his brain this time. After being happy for a while, he suddenly thought of a question and asked. Li Zishuan smiled and replied, "You don't have to worry about that. As long as you don't peel off the lime sawdust on the outside of the egg and put it in a ventilated and cool place, it can be stored for at least 3 months. The taste and texture will not change, and it can be maintained for at most 5 months. That's good. I was worried that it would spoil before I finished it." Chung Chumo scratched his head and pretended to be relieved. Then he slapped his thigh and exclaimed, "Hey, something's not right. Little Xian, even if you give me century eggs, no one in my family knows how to make them." Li Zishuan said helplessly, "What's so difficult about that? You can just cut up the century egg and cook it with the lean meat. Then you can add some salt. Wouldn't it become century egg and lean meat porridge? Oh, there's another way to eat the century egg, which is to directly mix it with cold sauce. You can ask your cook to cut each century egg into 4 pieces, sprinkle some salt on it, pour some vinegar, and mash some garlic into it. Then, you can eat it directly. Do you remember? Chung Chumo frowned and said after a while, I roughly remember. I'll ask my cook to try it when I return to Chang'an. He was still living in the villa in Yinshan. He still had to bring the century eggs that Li Zixuan gave him back to Chang and ask his cook to process them. Li Zixuan shook his head and chatted with Chung Chumo for a while. Seeing that this guy had the intention to leave, he asked someone to fetch a basket of century eggs for Chung Chumo. Chung Chumo took it and left directly. Creak, creak, creak. Huff, huff. The morning of Yanwang College on the weekend was quiet and peaceful. Only the sounds of insects, fish, and birds in the forest could be heard, as well as the squeaking of the shoulder pole and someone's panting. Li Tai was carrying 2 buckets of well water that had just been fetched from the well in the east of the college. He was staggering on the cement path with difficulty. The clothes on his back were completely soaked in sweat. He must have started fetching water a long time ago. Huff, huff. Damn, why did the college dig the well so far away from the dormitory? Isn't this a trap? Li Tai put the buckets on the ground to rest. The little fatty put his hands on his waist and panted heavily. He looked at the dormitory that was far away in front of him, which was estimated to be hundreds of feet away. He sighed and complained in a low voice. After more than half a month of military training, his body was stronger than before, but when had he ever done such physical work? His shoulders couldn't withstand such grinding. Not to mention 20 buckets of water. Even 6 buckets of water would cause the skin on his shoulders to break. Sigh, this can't go on. After a while, there will be more and more people in the college. If they see me fetching water, won't it be embarrassing? Li Tai wiped his sweat and muttered to himself. He had specially woken up early today to start fetching water while there were still fewer people in the college. He wanted to finish his work early, but he didn't expect that he would have to waste so much energy every time he fetched 2 buckets of water. He felt that his body was about to be hollowed out. Sigh, isn't this Ching K? I was wondering why you weren't in the dormitory so early in the morning. So you came here to fetch water. Did the sun rise from the west today? Our Prince Wei is actually fetching water for the college? Most of the time, what you didn't want would come to you. Just as Li Tai was sighing to himself, Sun Zifen suddenly walked over from the side. After seeing Li Tai and the 2 buckets of water at his feet, Sun Zifen was shocked at first. Then, he laughed evilly and walked up to them. Zifen, don't go overboard. It's so early in the morning. Why aren't you sleeping in? What are you doing here? Li Tai's heart thumped wildly when he heard someone speak. However, when he saw that the person who spoke was Sun Zifen, he was slightly relieved, but his expression was still unnatural. Huh, Qingke, why aren't you sleeping in the morning? Why are you fetching water here? Sun Zifen crossed his arms in front of his chest and stood to the side with an inexplicable smile. Li Tai didn't know how to explain. If he told the truth, he would definitely be laughed at by Sun Zifen. If that was the case, wouldn't he be happy for nothing yesterday? Huh, I got it. Sun Zifen glanced at Li Tai's expression and suddenly shouted, scaring Li Tai. Sun Zifen continued, It must be Yamacho. Yamacho must have asked you to fetch water. Otherwise, who in Yanwang College would dare to ask you to fetch water? What do you think? Am I right, Qingke? This little joker's analysis at the critical moment was very reasonable. He had actually guessed it right. Li Tai's heart skipped a beat. His expression changed for a while, and finally he could only admit, so what? It's none of your business. Sun Zifen wasn't angry at all. Instead, he laughed gloatingly. Haha, Qingke, you also have a day like this? What do you think? How many buckets of water did Yamacho ask you to fetch? Do you want me to help you? Chapter 809. I don't need it. Li Tai roared angrily as he looked at Sun Zifen, who was laughing maniacally in front of him. Then he bent down, picked up 2 buckets filled with well water, and staggered toward the dormitory with great difficulty. Sun Zifen was not annoyed. He looked at Li Tai's back with a grin and then walked toward the canteen. Considering that many students were from other places, the academy's canteen still provided food on weekends. However, there was a time limit. If one was late, there might not be any food left. This was also the reason why Sun Zifen woke up so early today. "Give me a bowl of porridge, 2 steamed buns, and a serving of meteoric success," Sun Zifen said to the waiter at the window when he arrived at the canteen. "Hey, young man, other than the plain porridge, there's also the century egg and lean meat porridge. Which one do you want?" The waiter did not immediately go to get the food for Sun Zifen. Instead, he asked with a smile, "Century egg and lean meat porridge? What kind of egg is century egg? Why haven't I heard of it before?" Sun Zifen asked curiously after he heard the waiter's words clearly. Century egg, it's... The waiter could not answer the question of what kind of egg century egg was. He stuttered for a long time, which made Sun Zifen a little impatient. Okay, give me a bowl of century egg and lean meat porridge. I want to try what it is today." Sun Zifen waved his hand and said loudly. "Oh, okay." The waiter laughed and went to prepare the food for Sun Zifen. After a while, Sun Zifen took the food and found a seat to sit down. Looking at the dark porridge in front of him, he frowned slightly. This was because the porridge did not look as good as the plain porridge. It smells pretty good." Sun Zifen lowered his head and sniffed. He was a little surprised. Then, he picked up a small spoon and began to eat the porridge. As soon as the fresh, tender, and thick porridge entered his mouth, the unique fragrance of century egg spread in Sun Zifen's mouth and filled every taste bud on the tip of his tongue. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Porridge can be so delicious. This century egg and lean meat porridge is amazing. Sun Zifan stuffed 3 or 4 mouthfuls of congee with pork and century egg into his mouth, and then kept shouting that it was delicious. At this time, many students had also entered the cafeteria. Under the promotion of the waiter, they tasted the first bowl of congee with pork and century egg in their lives. Wow, this porridge tastes so special. It's completely different from what I've eaten before. Oh, fragrant. It's really fragrant. Is this the fragrance of the century egg? That should be the case. But what exactly is this century egg? Why haven't I heard of it before? In this way, after Chung Chumo, the students who stayed in the academy for the weekend were the first to taste the century egg. Most of the students were full of praise, but there were a few who were not used to the taste of the century egg. Ugh, why is there a fishy smell in this century egg and lean meat porridge? The smell is too strong. I can't stand it. No, I'd better eat plain porridge. It was normal for some people to not be used to the century egg for the first time. Fortunately, the chef of the academy was more skillful. The fishy smell in the century egg and lean meat porridge had been suppressed by a lot. Therefore, more than 90% of the students had a very good impression of this new porridge. In a few hours, the century egg would be officially unveiled in the Drunken Immortal restaurant. By then, more and more people in Chang and city would be able to enjoy the century egg. Huff, 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 the 8th bucket. On the other side, Li Tai's progress in carrying water had finally reached the 8th bucket. However, at this time, after he poured the well water in the bucket into the water tower, he suddenly collapsed on the ground and was too lazy to even move a finger. He had exhausted all his strength. It was all thanks to so many days of military training. Otherwise, he would definitely not be able to persevere until now. Thinking of his previous round appearance, it would probably be difficult for him to carry 1 bucket of water. I can't carry anymore. Huff, huff, huff. The little fatty's whole body was soaked. Some of it was splashed on him by the well water in the bucket, but most of it was from his sweat. What did it mean to be drenched in sweat? Li Tai's current situation was the best explanation for this idiom, and it was even worse. Chinke, how many buckets is this? TSK, the breakfast in the canteen today is really delicious. While Li Tai was sitting on the ground, panting heavily, he saw Sun Zifan, this little slut, walking towards him. Sun Zifan's words didn't make any sense. Yes, that's right. In Li Tai's eyes, Sun Zifan had been labeled as a little bastard. Oh, Li Tai just glanced at Sun Zifen weakly and did not bicker with him because he was too tired to even move his mouth. Compared to the previous encounter, Li Tai did not have the mentality of being seen by others this time. At this point, his mind was only thinking about how to carry 20 buckets of water. As for what others saw, so what? If it was embarrassing, then so be it. TSK, Yamacho is really something. They actually let you carry so much water. Chinke, as your good brother, how can I just stand by and watch? I'll help you carry it. Seeing that Li Tai ignored his ridicule, Sun Zifen's eyes rolled, and then he changed into a righteous look, squatted beside Li Tai, and said. Li Tai still did not speak. He glanced at Sun Zifen with doubt and confusion in his eyes, but more than that, there was disbelief. It was as if he was saying, "How can you be so kind? I don't believe you." Sun Zifan instantly understood the meaning in Li Tai's eyes. He smiled, licked his face, and said, "Hee, Chinke, you see, as a friend, I'm already so kind. Then shouldn't you also express something?" When Li Tai heard this, his face showed a look of understanding. His eyes suddenly became clear, and he probably already knew what Sun Zifen was going to say next. Yes, that's right. You see, I help you carry water. How about you? How about you exempt me from the punishment of washing your feet for this month? Who doesn't know that every time you come to the academy, you bring a lot of clothes back home and let the servants wash them for you on the weekends? If you agree to this condition, not only will you not lose anything, but it will also be greatly beneficial for you. What do you think? At this moment, Sun Zifan finally revealed the foxtail that he had been hiding for a long time. He analyzed with extravagant words. Li Tai did not immediately refuse. After all, today was different from the past. Only after experiencing it did he know how tiring it was to carry water. The little fatty narrowed his eyes. After a long silence, he finally said weakly, "Okay, you help me carry 10 buckets of water, and the previous bet is written off." Huh, deal. Chapter 810. Hey, that's not right. Yamacho seems to have said that no one else is allowed to help. Below the dormitory of Yin Huang Academy, after resting for so long, Li Tai finally recovered. However, he suddenly remembered something, and his expression changed instantly. Sun Zifen, who was originally full of joy, suddenly looked sluggish. He scratched his head gloomily. Did he work so early in the morning for nothing? Did he have to wash Li Tai's smelly feet in the future? He couldn't accept it. No. Chinke, think about it carefully again. What did Yamacho say at that time? Did he say that no one else is allowed to help? Or did he say that no servants in your mansion are allowed to help? Sun Zifen scratched his ears and cheeks for a long time, then turned his head and asked Li Tai unwillingly. Li Tai, who was originally dejected, heard Sun Zifen's words, and his eyes suddenly lit up. He patted his head and thought seriously. After a moment, he suddenly shouted excitedly, "I remember now. The mountain leader told me before that I'm not allowed to spend money to hire people or ask servants to help. Zifen, you're not hired by me, and you're not a servant of my Wang Fu. Logically speaking, you should be able to do that." Huh. Li Tai couldn't help but laugh. In the end, he also hoped that Sun Zifen could help him carry water. That's great. Since it's a deal, let's start picking now. This agreement was a win-win for the two of them, so Sun Zifen couldn't wait to make it happen. Zifen, you go first. I'll rest here for a while. Anyway, I only have 2 buckets left. You still have 10 buckets. Li Tai shook his head and said with a long sigh. When Sun Zifen heard this, although he felt a little uncomfortable, in order to not have to wash smelly socks in the future, he would suffer a little loss. Okay, Chinke, you rest first. I'll go get the buckets from the dorm manager. Go. Li Tai smiled and waved his hand. Sun Zifen didn't say anything else and turned to leave. Li Tai leaned against the wall and looked at his back. He suddenly felt that something was wrong. He heard Sun Zifen mutter to himself, F***CK. If we were to seriously calculate this matter, both Sun Zifen and I were at a disadvantage. Not only did they not get anything, but each of them also had to carry 10 buckets of water. In the end, Xiao Xian was the only one who profited. Sigh, this king is really F***ed up. Sun Zifen and I have been fighting for so long, but it was all for nothing. In the end, the academy has benefited. At this point, little Fatty finally reacted. After all this time, neither he nor Sun Zifen had gained any advantage. They had all been tricked by Li Zishuan. But now that things had come to this, what could he say? He could only swallow this loss in silence. Sigh, the facts have proven that little Xian is a fraud. I can't trust him so easily in the future. Today, I'll have a good taste of what kind of egg this is. Everyone laughed kindly. Feng Jihua used a small spoon to scoop up a spoonful of century egg tofu. Because this thing looked cool, he saw that the white tofu was dotted with some black and green. It looked pleasing to the eye. Wow, fresh, tender, fragrant, and cool. This century egg tofu is amazing. It's a must-have dish for summer. A small spoonful of century egg tofu entered Feng Jihua's mouth. First, a cool sensation filled his mouth, followed by the freshness of the tofu and the fragrance of the century egg. Feng Jihua was full of praises. Brother Feng, this century egg lean meat congee is also excellent. I've never thought that thin porridge could be made into such a fancy dish. Zuaxian restaurant is indeed Zuaxian restaurant. The food here is always the best in Chang'an City. Liao Shifan savored 2 mouthfuls of century egg lean meat congee and praised. Brother Liao is right. The food of Zuaxian restaurant will never disappoint. This century egg salad is the best in my opinion. Zhang Jingyang had a strong taste and had a soft spot for century egg salad. At this moment, the other diners also came to eat. They also noticed the new dishes of Zuaxian restaurant. When they heard the praises of Feng Jihua, Liao Shifan, and the other regular diners, they were instantly tempted. Moreover, the new dishes of Wonderful Taste Pavilion were very cheap this time. Century egg lean meat congee was only 20 copper coins, century egg salad was 80 copper coins, and century egg tofu was 100 copper coins. Compared to the previously gnawed chicken and red braised meat, it was much cheaper. Waiter, give me a serving of red braised meat and century egg tofu. Waiter, give me 2 bowls of century egg lean meat congee. Give me 2 servings of century egg salad. Chapter 8:11. The reason why the congee with pork and century egg, the tofu with century egg, and the cold tossed century egg were so cheap was that Li Zishuan wanted to sell the century egg on a large scale as soon as possible. After all, if the normal consumption of the Drunken Immortal restaurant and the canteen of Yanhuang Academy were to be relied on, the century eggs made from the eggs that Li Zishuan purchased from the Han Village and Plum Village a while ago would probably not be sold out until next year. Therefore, the low price was one thing. More importantly, the Drunken Immortal restaurant had launched a takeaway event. Dear customers, everyone has tasted the delicious taste of the century eggs. Whether you like it or not, I'm sure everyone has a plan in mind. To be honest, the century eggs are the latest food invented by my family's marquis. They're made from eggs through 49 processes in 49 days. The process is not easy. Compared to unprocessed eggs, the century eggs can be stored for a longer time. They can be stored for at least 3 months, and the taste will not change. In order to let more people eat this delicious food, the Zuaxian restaurant will sell an unlimited number of marinated century eggs to the public. It only costs 5 copper coins. After buying it, you just need to peel it, cut it into pieces, and mix it with seasoning before eating it directly. At the same time, Soaring Success will also provide an unlimited supply. In this month, the Zuaxian restaurant will open 3 branches in Chang'an City. In the future, we will open branches in other provinces and counties outside Chang'an City. At that time, you may be able to eat the delicacies of the Zuaxian restaurant in your own shops. After about half an hour, shopkeeper Lu saw that most of the diners in the restaurant were almost done eating. He walked to a table and announced to the crowd with a smile. When the diners heard this, they were all overjoyed. This was the first time that the Zoatian restaurant sold its food to the public. Some of the businessmen among them were tempted. 5 copper coins for a century egg was not expensive. It was very profitable to sell it in other places or as a dish in other places. Oh, only 5 copper coins for a century egg? And it can be stored for more than 3 months? Good, good, good. Shopkeeper Liu, please help me pack 100 of them. I'll bring some for my wife to try when I leave later. Feng Zhihua said with a smile. Shopkeeper Liu, pack 100 century eggs for me, too. While you're at it, pack 2 servings of flying meteoric success. Shopkeeper Liu, pack up 50 of them for me. Drunken Immortal in his opening a branch? This was good news. If only it could be open near Chongren Square. At that time, I won't have to come here in a carriage just to eat. Huff, huff. Not bad, not bad. The congee with pork and century egg that Xiaoxian made was really good. Madam, let's make our porridge like this in the future. This kind of salty porridge is more enjoyable. Cheng residence, lunchtime. Cheng Yaojin finished a bowl of congee with pork and century egg in no time. He wiped his mouth and said with satisfaction. Madam Cheng rolled her eyes at Cheng Yaojin and said, Look at you, insisting that the kitchen make this congee with pork and century egg in the middle of the day. Which family eats porridge for lunch? But this cold congee with century egg is not bad. Cheng Yaojin touched his nose embarrassedly. Actually, he couldn't be blamed for this. It was mainly because after Cheng Chumo came back, he bragged that the congee with pork and century egg that he ate at Li Zishuan's house was one of a kind. That was why he ordered the kitchen to make congee with pork and century egg for lunch. Ahem, it doesn't matter. The important thing is that Madam thinks that the century egg is delicious. Madam Cheng sighed helplessly. Suddenly, she seemed to have thought of something. By the way, old master, I heard from Chonyo that the Duke of Yong and his family is buying eggs from their farmers in large quantities. I guess they're using them to make century eggs, right? Cheng Yaojin stroked his beard and nodded. I heard Xiaoxian mention it at the academy. It was mainly because there were so many eggs in Chong and city that they couldn't sell them. No one bought one for 2 copper coins. The farmers of his 2 farms had accumulated a lot of eggs. Seeing that they were going to spoil soon, Xiaoxian thought of a way to find a way out for the farmers. I have to say that this child is really resourceful. He actually came up with such an idea. Besides, this century egg is to my liking. Chonyo, after we finish eating, pick a few dozen century eggs and send them to the Qin family. Cheng Chumo's mouth was still stuffed with century egg and tofu. When he heard this, he directly spoke with a lisp. Father, there's no need. Xiaoxian has already sent them door to door. I reckon that even His Majesty is eating his century eggs now. Cheng Yaojin was stunned. Then, he came back to his senses and couldn't help but laugh. This kid is really good at doing business. He's even got ideas on His Majesty. In this entire imperial court, only that old man Wei Zheng can compare with him in terms of guts. Madam Cheng smiled and didn't reply. She hesitated for a while and said, I just don't know how this child made the century eggs with eggs. They can actually be preserved for such a long time. Old master, the farmers of our farms also have a lot of eggs that they can't sell. Why don't we ask the Duke of Yong on how to make century eggs? When Cheng Yaojin heard this, his expression suddenly changed. He sternly scolded, Nonsense! Foolish! This method of making century eggs is Xiaoshuan's secret recipe. As elders, how can we snatch something from the younger generation? If this gets out, where will I, Chang Jijia, put my old face? You're scheming for a source of wealth. Seeing Cheng Yaojin throw a rare tantrum, Cheng Chumo and Cheng Chuyang at the dining table quickly put down their chopsticks and quietly sat on the stools without saying a word. Madam Cheng, who was used to being domineering, didn't dare to talk back at this moment. In the end, Cheng Yaojin was the backbone of this family. Usually, Cheng Yaojin wouldn't haggle with her over small matters and would go along with her wishes. However, when it came to major issues, no one in this family dared to refute Cheng Yaojin's opinions. Old master, I didn't say that I want to snatch the Duke of Yong and secret recipe. I'm just asking you if we can cooperate with the Duke of Yong. After all, our farm is rearing a lot of chickens this year. Madame Cheng paused for a moment before opening her mouth to explain. Cheng Yaojin's expression softened slightly. He thought for a moment and said, "Don't think about snatching Xiaoshuan's money. Xiaoshuan's winery has already brought us a lot of income. One must be content with what one has. Our family doesn't have to worry about money now. However, Madame's question is reasonable. This old man will go back and talk to Xiaoxian. Let's see if he can buy all of the eggs in our farm. And that's fine too. This year, the farm's grain production has decreased. This way, it can be considered as an additional source of income for the farmers." Madame Cheng nodded and said softly. Cheng Chumo and Cheng Chuyang didn't care about this. When the two saw that their mother had reconciled with them, they lowered their heads and began to eat fiercely. To them, delicious food was the way of the king. Chapter 8:12. Cheng Chumo was right. Not only did the Cheng family receive the century eggs from Li Zishuan, but the Qin family, Niu family, Yuqi family, Li Jing family, Li Xiaogong family, Fang Xinling family, Zhang Sun Wuji family, and Wei Zheng family all received hundreds of century eggs and a recipe for making century eggs. Some of these people were delivered by Li Zishuan himself, while others were delivered by his guards. Poor Pang Feiji and his team of marquises. They were originally civil servants in charge of maintaining the security of Chang and city, but now they had become delivery men for Li Zishuan. Although Li Zishuan had given away so many century egg recipes, he was not worried that others would learn how to make century eggs and cause the loss of customers from Zuaxian restaurant. That was because the most authentic way of cooking was always in the hands of Zuaxian restaurant. Just like crayfish and hairy crabs in his previous life, the recipe could be found on the internet. But why were there so many people willing to eat in restaurants? Food was not something that could be made delicious just because you knew how to make it. Therefore, not only was he not afraid of others learning, but he also encouraged others to learn. Only when everyone knew how to make century eggs and tasted the delicacy could his task of promoting century eggs be completed. At the same time, in the palace, the great Emperor Li Er also received the century eggs from Li Zishuan. Of course, Li Er did not receive them personally, but they were sent by Li Changxian. This century egg tofu is a good dish. It's refreshing and tender. Tell the imperial chef to keep this dish for lunch every day for the next month. Li Er, who was overwhelmed by a pile of troublesome matters in the morning court, suddenly felt refreshed when he ate the cold and refreshing century eggs with tofu at noon. He praised, and then turned his head to instruct the palace maid next to him. "Yes, your majesty." The little palace maid bowed and slowly retreated. Empress Zhangsun covered her mouth and laughed. "Since autumn, your majesty's appetite has not been very good. I didn't expect that the century egg with tofu would suit your majesty's taste. It seems that I should thank Marquis Yeoman." Li Er laughed and said, "Guanyin maid, this is not because of that guy, but because of your good cooking. I heard that you went to the kitchen 2 hours ago to prepare. Thank you for your hard work." Empress Zhangsun shook her head and said with a happy face, "As long as your majesty can eat well, everything I do is worth it. The Tang Empire cannot be left without your majesty." Li put down his chopsticks and patted Zhangsun's small white hands. And his wife and couple had been together for more than 10 years. How could they not know each other's feelings? After a moment's silence, said, "In fact, my poor appetite was not because the food was not to my taste. This year's drought caused the people's farmland to be reduced. In order to reduce the burden of the people, I forcibly reduced the burden. Later, the tax collection situation submitted by various states was calculated by the Ministry of Civil Affairs. It was found that it was not even 70% of last year's. In addition, last year, because of the Turkic Shelley's army, the Chang and treasury was empty. I was worried that if there was another natural disaster in the Tang Empire, the treasury would not be able to continue. Haha. But fortunately, the fleet led by Xiao Gong came back at this time. Not only did they bring back a huge amount of food, but they also brought back a huge amount of wealth. The financial strain of the imperial court was greatly relieved. And just this time, the business tax collected from the civilian caravan was a total of 400,000 strings of coins. Guanyin made, you didn't see it. After that old man Xiao Yu saw the results of the statistics, he laughed from ear to ear for a quarter of an hour. How can I not be happy? At the end of his speech, Li Er's mood became high, and a long-lost relaxed smile appeared on his face. Empress Zhongsun looked at the man in front of her with a complicated mood. She sighed and said, "Your Majesty is wholeheartedly for the country and the people. You are happy for the world, but also sad for the world. This is the blessing of the Tang Empire's people. But I hope that your Majesty will take care of your body. Your Majesty is not only the majesty of the world, but also the majesty of Chengxian, Qingke, and Chang'el." Li Er understood the meaning of Empress Zhongsun. He smiled and said, "Don't worry, Guanyin maid. I understand." Empress Zhongsun smiled. She pulled her small hand out of Li Er's big hand and then used a small spoon to scoop a spoonful of century eggs and tofu for Li Er. She said, "Your Majesty, eat quickly. The century eggs and tofu won't be fresh in a while." Li Er naturally enjoyed the service of the beauty with a clear conscience. He heard Empress Zhongsun continue. "I heard that the century eggs were a new trick invented by the Marquis of Yong, and to help his farmers solve the backlog of eggs in their hands. This child has a lot of ideas. I don't know how many things are in his head, but this way, his farmers can earn a lot of money, and the other farmers are still worried about how to sell their eggs." Li Er had never heard of this. He frowned and asked, "What? Are the eggs in Chong and worthless now?" Empress Zhongsun's brows showed a hint of worry and replied, "Your Majesty may not know, but since the imperial court issued a decree to reduce the burden of raising chickens this year, not to mention the other states and counties, in Chong and the nearby farms, basically every household has at least 70 to 80 chickens. Now, more than 4 months have passed. The chickens raised by the people have long started to lay eggs. These eggs can't be stored for long and will spoil in less than 10 days. In order to sell the eggs as soon as possible, the farmers are desperately trying to lower the price. As a result, the price of eggs has fallen again and again until it's difficult to sell them now." Li Er was silent for a while, and then said, "This is indeed a problem. But now that Li Zishuan has thought of this method of making century eggs, it depends on whether he's willing to impart the method of making century eggs. If he's unwilling, we can only let him expand the production scale of century eggs. I think it should be able to alleviate the current situation. When the weather gets colder, the production of eggs will also decrease. At that time, the price of eggs will stabilize." What he said was indeed reasonable. Letting Li Zishuan make century eggs into century eggs could, first, expand the sales and second, prolong the preservation time. It was already autumn now. When it was late autumn or after winter, due to the decrease in temperature and light, the laying rate of chickens would obviously decrease until the production stopped. Hey, but this kid is really good to his farmers. In the end, Li Er added another sentence. Speaking of which, this time, Li Er didn't have any intention of getting Li Zishuan's secret method of making century eggs. The main reason was that this sea trade had fattened the imperial court. Old Li was now a rich man, and the small amount of money he earned from making century eggs was not enough for Li Er. Chapter 8:13. Your Majesty is right. The Marquis of Yong entreats the people well. Who in Chang'an City doesn't know about this? Your Majesty has given Lantian County to the Marquis of Yong. I heard that some of the farmers in the villages close to Lantian County all sighed when they heard the news, regretting that their villages were not the Marquis of Yong. From this, it can be seen how kind this child is usually. In the Lizheng Palace, Empress Zhongsun heard Li Er's words and chuckled. Kind. Hearing this, Lier suddenly smiled mysteriously and said, "This kid has never been a kind person. Guanyin maid, you don't know, but the day before yesterday, this kid was still spouting nonsense in the morning court. He said that the peace of the Tang Empire was not obtained by blindly giving in, but by the soldiers using their blood and fists. The Tang people need to have pride. The Tang people are not afraid of war. Even if the entire world attacks the Tang Empire, the Tang Empire will be able to break through. Listen to this. Sometimes this kid is filled with killing intent. At such a young age, he has so much hostility. It is really unbelievable. Right now, he has already been labeled as a traitor by many officials in the court." Hearing this, Empress Zhongsun was silent for a while. Then, she smiled and said, "This kid's personality is probably what your majesty wants, right? And what this kid said is not wrong at all. The peace of the Tang Empire today was obtained by your majesty leading a group of generals using their blood. After being with Lier for so many years, how could Empress Zhongsun not understand the true thoughts in Lier's heart? She could tell at a glance that even though Lier was criticizing Li Zishuan in all sorts of ways, his words were filled with admiration. Huh, Guanyin maid understands me. That's right. Although this kid is often muddle-headed, I admire the spirit and sharpness in his bones. In the future, when I am old, the generals of this generation will not be able to lift their swords. I hope that this kid Li Zishuan can take up the heavy responsibility and help Chengxian well. Just like the title I gave him, Yoan, protect the Tang Empire forever." Li Zishuan naturally did not know about the conversation that happened in the palace. Lier also did not know that his precious son was being tortured fetching water in Yanhuang College. If he knew, his conversation with Empress Zhongsun would probably be to scold Li Zishuan and not praise. Speaking of which, Li Zishuan was busy going to Chang'an City in the morning to send gifts to the big shots. In order to keep smiling, his face was a little stiff from smiling. And then he went to the workshop to teach Faubert's rubber. Unexpectedly, just as he was about to leave, an uninvited guest came. An uninvited guest with unprecedented strength. It was a middle-aged man who was nearly 7 feet tall, which was over 2 meters. He had a 3-inch beard on his chin, which looked like it had not been tidied in a long time. It was messy and a bit disgusting. His appearance was ugly, and there was a scar on his face. Although his facial features were sharp and angular, no matter how you looked at it, he looked like the reincarnation of an evil spirit. He was abnormally ferocious. Children would probably be scared to tears if they saw his face. These were not important. The most important thing was that Li Zishuan felt a very majestic and turbulent power of flesh and blood from this man, indicating that this man's physical cultivation had reached a very terrifying realm. In his impression, only the golden body of Arhut of the Shaolin Temple could be comparable to it. What was worse was that the moment this man stood there, Li Zishuan felt an extremely heavy pressure. This meant that this person's martial arts realm was far above his. If they were to compare, even Zhao Song at his peak would not be a match for this man. At first glance, Li Zishuan determined that the man was a master at the peak of the master stage, or even a half step into the great master stage. His strength was not inferior to his martial uncles in Longhu Mountain. If they were to fight to the death, perhaps only his genius, youngest martial uncle would be able to fight him. Wouldn't you be nervous if a ferocious-looking man with terrifying strength was blocking your door? The true qi in Li Zishuan's body quickly began to revolve, and he raised his guard to 120%. If this person really wanted to attack him, he should be able to escape with all his strength. But could he escape? No. Behind him were his father, mother, wife, and sister. Not far from where he was, there were hundreds of teachers and students from Yanhuang College. If such a powerful devil was allowed to wreak havoc, no one in Yinshan would be able to keep him in check. When did a monster with such a terrifying cultivation appear in Chang'an City? Did this man come with ill intentions, or was he looking for something? Li Zishuan's heart was filled with vigilance and doubts. "Senior, may I know your honorific name? Why have you come to Yinshan?" Li Zishuan stepped forward slowly, saluted, and cupped his fists. Previously, Li Zishuan was sizing up the man. In fact, the man was also sizing up Li Zishuan. At this moment, when he saw Li Zishuan step forward and salute, he narrowed his eyes and smiled instead of answering. "You are Li Zishuan, right? The last disciple of Taoist Ling Su of Celestial Master Sect in Longhu Mountain? Not bad, not bad. Little boy, you have guts. You have not disgraced the name of Spiritual Master Ling Su." Li Zishuan's heart moved slightly. This man knew his master? This should be easy to handle. Generally speaking, as long as someone knew his master, they would give him some face. He had to admit that the name of Spiritual Master Ling Su was very useful. "Senior, since you know my master, then you are an old friend. Please come in and have some tea." Li Zishuan smiled and tried to get close to the man. After all, it would be best to be friends with such a powerful person who knew that when the man heard this, he would actually pull out the 4-foot-long broadsword on his back. He casually waved the broadsword and then gently placed it on the ground. The hard cement floor was actually cut open like a piece of tofu. The man laughed loudly and said, "Huh, Junior, I'm not here to drink tea. I am here to compete with you. I want to see how much of Spiritual Master Ling Su's teachings you have. If you can win against me, that's fine. If you lose..." "Shinner, this is husband." Coincidentally, at this moment, Han Yushi came out with Madame Li, followed by Li Jingma and Lan. They must have heard the commotion in the front yard and ran out. "Hee, little boy. If you lose, it means that your skills are not good enough. I will clean up the house for Spiritual Master Ling Su. Don't even think about leaving a single person in your yard alive." The curly-bearded man pointed at the people behind Li Zishuan and said with a ferocious expression, "He came with ill intentions." As expected, he came with ill intentions. Now that the situation had developed in the worst direction, Li Zishuan's complexion suddenly changed greatly. His heart also sank. This old bastard with extremely high martial arts was actually here to pick a fight. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.